Donut hole, nothing burger.
Man, it's never going to fit because it's not the truth. That there's reasonable doubt all over the place, and you will find Mr. Stillwell not guilty.
Video from the surrounding area that shows him transferring into the infinity? No. I mean, presumably, he teleports into the infinity. I have no idea. No weapons tying Mr. Kendrick to it. No ballistics. No fingerprints. No gunpowder residue. No DNA. Nothing. Nothing that you would expect to see. The state is all in red today. Are they a gang because they're all dressed in red?
And we are not targeting people of color. We are targeting gang members who decided to wreak havoc on communities in Fulton County. If Kendrick didn't tell them that he saw Donovan, maybe we wouldn't be here today on a murder charge.
She's saying Kendrick's the one that alerts them of Donovan's location out front of the barbershop?
He's the one who alerted them.
Why is she yelling? What's going on? Today in the YSL RICO trial, both the state and defense had closing arguments. Both sides pretty much go through this entire case today. It's very long. Doug Weinstein calls the state a gang because they're all wearing red. I just got my wisdom teeth out 3 days ago, so I can barely talk, but I tried my best. Hit subscribe. I appreciate the support. It's been a crazy ride. I think deliberations start late tomorrow on Tuesday, but I'm not sure. All right, there's the judge. She doesn't look like she's in a good mood, honestly. Yeah, God, he got the white vest on. Okay. The state is matching in red. Why would they do that? Isn't red associated with like a negative part of your brain? Oh my God, he has a red tie on. Why would they do that? Doug put the green tie on today.
This is working. We need you next door. Yes, it's working. I can't see it, so. Okay. Well, that one's nowhere near as critical as the one that the jury is going to see.
Of course, on the last day, there's technical difficulties. All right, the jury's about to come in for closing arguments. This is intense.
Does the defense have evidence to present on behalf of Mr. Stillwell?
Your Honor, we do not wish to present any evidence.
Understood. All right. And Mr. Weinstein, does the defense wish to present evidence on behalf of Mr. Kendrick?
No, Your Honor, we do not feel that's necessary.
All right. Thank you very much.
That was worded strategically there.
The next step in this case is the closing arguments. Because the state has the burden of proof in this case, the state will make an initial closing argument. The defense will then have an opportunity to present any closing argument that they wish to present. And the defense, if the defense does present closing, then the state will then have a final opportunity at summation.
Oh no, it's Adkins? No way.
I wanted to talk to you about what we've learned YSL is about. And 4 words come to mind. The first word, deception, intimidation, destruction, and death. Deception of the youth who get enamored with what is presented publicly and then deceived when they become a part of the criminal enterprise. Deception for law enforcement to not uncover the actions that they commit.
Why is his mic not working?
Overt, out in the open, or subtle, that if we do a crime to you or you know about it, don't say anything. The destruction has multiple parts. You've heard from multiple communities all throughout Fulton County that often similar pockets in the city have been affected. From dealing drugs, the robberies, the shootings, the shell casings, the windows, the doors, the refrigerators, the cars, over and over. That's the destruction. You've heard about 3 murders: Donovan Thomas, Shmyel Drinks, and Jamari Holmes. That is what YSL, the criminal enterprise, is about. Now, I'm going to talk to you about Count 1 RICO and Criminal Street Gang. And so when I am complete, at the end, Ms. Hilton will come up and talk to you about the murder of Donovan Thomas and the murder of Shmyel Drinks and the remaining counts. Murder gang in my slime is above the law. But in Fulton County, nobody is above the law. And that's why you're here.
You already know why I said we dead and pale. Murder gang. Yeah.
Those are their own words, murder gang. What they are publicly stating that the enterprise and the street gang, and I may use both of those terms interchangeably today, are about. And lastly, after publicly bragging and boasting about murders, what is their viewpoint on being held accountable? Well, let me take their own words. Don't just take mine. That's saying my slimes are above the law. So now I'm going to equip you with the duty as jurors so that you can learn about the law that the judge will instruct you on.
I feel like Atkins wasn't the guy to do this, right? Like, this is kind of not going well so far.
It's to honestly seek the truth. You've heard evidence, testimony, physical items. It's not to seek doubt. It's to seek the truth.
Jury's duty. Be a fair and impartial juror. Honestly seeking the truth. Okay. All right, state of Georgia. Are they really not going to fix the mic? Like, this is going to piss me off. It's so quiet. I'm going to have to edit the audio so much today, man. Jurors cannot consider passion, public opinion, unhappy with police, public meeting, sentiment, prejudice, penalty and punishment, conjecture, disagree with law, sympathy for defendant.
How long do all the sacrifices you made? And what I thought about, because when you initially came on, it was 6 to 9 months, and now we're here 12 months later, and that is a significant difference. And there's one time in my life that came to mind about this. I couldn't do this again today, but I ran 1 marathon. When I got there that day, I was supposed to do a half marathon, which is many years ago. And when I'm in line with one of my best friends who encouraged me to run, I see people much older than me. I won't call them old, but they may have been pushing 90. Marathon. And so he gave me that look, and I said, all right, I'll do the marathon with you. And during that, expecting to run a half, that day run the full, I had moments where I wanted to quit. I had moments I wanted to walk. I had moments where I wasn't ready, I wasn't prepared, I didn't sign up for this, even though technically I agreed to do the marathon. And as I got to the end, like we are here, I said, if I walk off on mile 21 or 20, all of this will be for nothing. And I will regret that. So with this time, I ask you to see it through, finish strong. And by that I mean listen to the closing arguments and deliberate with one another in the evidence. Because you owe it to yourself, you owe it to the victims, and you owe it to your duty as jurors. Like I said, you consider the evidence, the testimony, you don't consider what is outside. This burden of proof rests with it until we prove each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt. What is a reasonable doubt? Everyone's heard that term, but what does it actually mean? It's not a mathematical certainty. There's no...
Bro, what is this PowerPoint, bro? Presumption of innocence. Why is there literally a cloak?
I use a cloak, right, where you're presumed innocent. Everyone is. Until the state has proven your guilt on whatever crime, in this case, RICO, murder, street gang, beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the dollar bill, right? If you have pieces of the puzzle, and some of y'all may like puzzles, that are removed, everyone knows that that's a $1 bill. There's no reasonable doubt that that is a $1 bill, even though almost 50% of it is wrong. That's just a visual illustration to prove the point. So direct evidence, physical items, it's what's said in this witness box before you, personal observations, that's all direct evidence. Circumstantial evidence can be cell phone records, where people are within a general radius. Ankle monitor data, what someone's actions afterwards, who's calling who, who's texting who. That can circumstantially prove and lead to a conclusion. Whereas, and you can use both. The law doesn't weigh direct or circumstantial more or less than the other. In any trial, you're going to use both.
So, nigga, a lot of their mama, a lot of their kids, a lot of their brothers and sisters, they didn't get ready in the courtroom and tell the God and the truth. Don't get y'all niggas get fucking killed, bro.
You snitching bitches?
From me and YSL.
What is this PowerPoint, bro? Look at the way they put these pictures up. This looks like something I made in 4th grade.
That's what's said outside of the courtroom. These are all witnesses who testified that were either co-conspirators or indicted on this case. And ask yourself, you could know it just as well as I right before the state would ask is why sell a game. The words music group, you know it's about to come off. Or I've never heard of that. I said game, G-A-M-E. I didn't say G-A-M-G, even though you just heard them say game. Think about that and why people would come in here and think about what they said. I mean, when Mary Zachary said that these two defendants confessed to him to murder Donovan Thomas the night of the murder. You don't think he's going to come in here and back up off that? Bragging or boasting about the murder. We put that on your tombstone. The things he knows when he's sitting up here don't sound good in a trial of his friends, fellow gang members, and co-conspirators. So he's going to back up off.
So now he's shitting on the credibility of his own witnesses?
He, when he did his plea agreement, said that he had knowledge that someone was involved with the murder of Donovan Thomas, but he backs up off of it, right? He gives why. Think about why. And think about, they know the feelings that these defendants have about people who come in and tell them. And on his chest, the price of loyalty is wealth. The price of disloyalty is death. So these witnesses who say incriminating things about them in a police station or outside of court, when they come in here and are sitting in a witness box 10 feet from them, how do you think they know this? That's these defendants' own words about people who come in and testify against themselves or others. That's their feelings on it. Things that these witnesses know very well. This is Kenneth Copeland outside of the criminal court.
Last words and shout outs before we get you out of here?
Shout out to the gang. YSL for life. You know what I mean?
YSL for life. And these are photographs he's had. He has known Shannon Stillwell for almost the vast majority of his life. And Kenneth Copeland would not want to say something, I argue, because of his bias and motive that would want to hurt. That's just common sense. And think about that when you hear what people say to a police station when it's just Detective Baker and Dennis, or what they say in this court. And so all of them would be guilty in this fact pattern of that. So in this case, what Copeland and Zachary say about defendant Kendrick is he was driving the Infiniti Q50. If he's driving that Infiniti Q50 while Shannon Stillwell, Demise McClellan are shooting 7.62 and 9mm shell casings into the body of Donovan Thomas with Justin Kyle Duwop, that's party to a crime. That's the example in this case. And it will come up in some of the overt acts that we're going to talk about soon. It sounds like, Your Honor, this microphone may have... Yes, Your Honor. If you let me know if that helps fix that. I got to fix this belt buckle here real quick.
Dude, Atkins seems like a nice guy, but he's such a dork. They finally fixed the mic. Let's go.
Kendrick has this count 57 participation in criminal street gang activity.
All right, guys, listen up. Atkins needs to get his confidence and hair back with hims.com/cuff. When men leave the house, we look for our wallet, phone, and keys, and we check how our hair looks, right? But if you're experiencing hair loss, you may not feel so confident to step out your door. Hims is the best solution for you, boys. Listen up. Hims provides you with convenient and quality access to a range of hair loss treatments, all from your couch. And these treatments actually work. Hims makes treating your hair loss simple with doctor-trusted options and clinically proven ingredients like finasteride and minoxidil that can regrow your hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. Yes, you heard me correctly, only 3 to 6 months. You can choose from a personalized chewable, oral, serum, or spray and pick the treatment that works the best for you. This process is so simple and it's 100% online, so no awkward doctor visit where you have to explain that you're balding. All you do is answer a few questions and a medical provider will determine if the treatment's right for you. If prescribed, your treatment is sent to you directly in discreet packaging. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/cuff. That's hims.com/cuff. That's hims.com/cuff for your personalized hair loss treatments. hims.com/cuff. Here's the rest video, boys.
For the marijuana and firearms, like street gang activity during the commission of a felony for the May 9th, 2022. These street gang charges, which I'm going to talk to you about at the end, pertain to the murder of Shmyel Drinks, a gang-related murder that the evidence has shown Shannon committed along with Demethion Garlington, Miles Farley, and Quarmavius Nichols. But first, I'm going to talk about RICO, which is count 1, which both are charged with. The general concept is they're charged with conspiracy to commit racketeering. So I'm going to have to explain to you what is RICO, what is conspiracy to commit RICO, and then you as jurors, with the evidence that has been presented, will reach the only reasonable conclusion that they're guilty of that count. But you need to know what RICO is first. And there's two ways to violate RICO.
His mic just turned off again. Remember, the state has burden of proof here, so they really have to hammer it home all aspects of every count and charge and everything.
So I think we all can agree that should be an element that's easy to check. You've heard from ample, it doesn't have to just be the 28 indicted co-conspirators. You will see in that indictment that it states on page 12 that it also includes unnamed or unindicted co-conspirators if you find that they're part of the conspiracy. So keep that in mind when you go back and deliberate. But yes, one of the elements, beyond a reasonable doubt, is 2 or more.
Another thing about closing arguments, judges and juries don't like objections during closing arguments. So a lot of you are going to be thinking, why aren't they objecting? Defense lawyers are waiting to go up and point out the lie or however they're spinning it in their own closing argument and not object and interrupt them.
You can just hold.
Yes, Your Honor.
This has been a sloppy mess so far, man. The state needs to present a clear timeline of each defendant, each co-conspirator. Like, he's like all over the place.
What else can you use? Remember we talked about circumstantial evidence? Circumstantial evidence inferred from the nature of the acts done, relation of the parties, and the interest of the conspirators. What do they have to gain? Is it for something to further the group's interest? How do you know someone agrees? Look at what they do. And I argue to you that the evidence has shown that they've all knowingly and willfully agreed. Take where we started, or take the 2 murders. Shannon Stillwell, January 10th, 2015, murders Donovan Thomas. March 14th, 2022, Shannon Stillwell, with 3 other YSL members in both times, murders Shmyel Drinks. If you have to ask yourself, did he knowingly and willfully agree to be a part of YSL criminal enterprise with 2 gang murders? That's an easy question. That's the most clear example of if someone murders a rival gang member twice, I think it's pretty clear that they knowingly and willfully agreed, regardless if they signed on the dotted line.
But there's a shit ton of doubt for both of those murders that the juries have to decide with the evidence that they've been presented with.
The crimes and acts.
The same shit that got Big and Tupac killed, little fuck, nigga. Pussy that nigga, your bitch ass killed. Hey, gang, you bring your pussy out, you gonna see me? I'm at your fucking neck.
Kendrick with YSL pennant, and you have Shannon Stillwell where someone in the background says YSL for life. That's just one example. You've obviously seen and heard from multiple. But what do they say? What do they do? Are they publicly or actively or oftenly saying, yes, I'm a part of this YSL, there's an us and a them? Yes. YFN Lucci flyer. This is from Marquavius Huey's phone, where him and Jeffrey Williams, they send the text message, the flyer of Lucci. In 6 text messages, this principle of agreement, you're going to see agreement in action. This text is about to come up where all that's said, right? Jeffrey Williams says, where's that at? Claremont, slatty handle, stay very low, slat for sure, been out the way. They didn't say murder. They didn't say stab. They didn't say shoot. But in 6 text messages, it's readily clear that they're talking about enacting violence on YFN Lucci. That's agreement in one, barely a screen of a text message. That principle shows you, and think about this example throughout. What do they say with one another? What do they do with one another? That's how you can know agreement. So at its core, the crime is the agreement. The overt acts let you know that it's real. So this is important. They're charged with conspiracy to violate RICO. So the agreement to violate RICO, that's the crime they're charged with. These overt acts that you've heard from, we're about to walk through, those let you know that this isn't just fanciful, this isn't just in their minds, it's a real conspiracy. And in this case, and we're going to explain what RICO A and B is, they've actually committed the crimes. So it's like you're asking you, did this group of individuals agree to conspire to commit all of these crimes, racketeering activity? The best evidence of that they did is they actually went and shot multiple people, murdered people, robbed for the street gang. That lets you know that there's not much to say when you actually do the crimes that you're alleged to have just conspired to commit. The conspiracy is alive and well in this courtroom with deceiving in this witness stand. So this is just a visual explanation that you have Shannon Stillwell, Diamante Kendricks, and some, I didn't list all the photos of people you've seen. If they're going to shoot a rival and you find that, yeah, they did shoot that rival and they did it to help YSL the enterprise, if that act and you find that whoever you find is part of that conspiracy, it's like they're all one and one for all. So each co-conspirator is responsible for the acts of others that are naturally and necessarily done to further the enterprise. You heard from the officer where she walked with her child from 988 Confederate Court to that zone precinct to report crime. Obviously she came in here and, did not want to acknowledge about the robbery, but I argue there's about to be a real bullet in her window that was taken by a crime scene tech who just responds to a scene. That is 988 Confederate Court, which comes up that address and area multiple times.
This is the robbery that, remember she says, I think DK and Thug robbed her in 2013. On the stand, she said it never happened. She
told the officer at the time, her Kel-Tec, the money, her purse was stolen. Acquire and keep money. Walter Murphy, Jeffrey Williams, and she said someone that she didn't know, Jeffrey Williams' brother. That's multiple people doing it. That's one crime, one act. But when they work together, it's much easier to get property and items. Adrian being set here for what felt like an eternity and didn't remember entire years, but he flew over while driving a car over a 6-foot embankment. Why did he not remember any of that? Just think about that. I think the only thing he said is that memorable moment where he's like, keep it a buck, and he took his mask off. but he clearly would remember flying over a wall. Why are we not coming here and talk about it? Now this, again, Walter Murphy, Jeffrey Williams, that's the location where Leonard Pass's car, which is that gray Dodge right there, is parked, Somerdale Apartments. Obviously this is in the Cleveland Avenue area, because often these crimes are committed in same locations, which will come important later. These are the firearms that they recovered from the car. Common after crimes, they go to the same location. That's important, because these same victims, same accomplices, same pattern is important for RICO. So keep that in mind as we walk through this. So why would you publicly have the gang on your face when you do a crime? Because a face tattoo could stand out. Because they want people to know. You want the notoriety. You want the fear. Who robbed you? YSL. She doesn't know his name. Think about that. You have multiple people. And Walter Murphy, for those, I don't know the date Walter Murphy got his face tattoo. I know Ebinger had it for this. But Walter Murphy has a YSL on his forehead, right? So think about that public display of allegiance to the criminal street gang and when you in enterprise.
See, that's something I'll point out is bullshit. Like the YSL face tattoo is him wanting his victims to know he's in YSL. And it's in furtherance of the gang. That is not the reason why they have a YSL tattoo on their face.
Kendrick, Stillwell, this is Demise McMullen. Now we'll talk about this in a minute. This is actually the photograph of when they shot Dexter Montgomery. Same case with D'Angelo White when they left that Jonesboro gas station in Lakewood and got to the four-way stop. That's the photograph of that. So you have Nard, but that's Demise McMullen, Shannon Stillwell, Kendrick. This is obviously the shooting. Overt act is did Jeffrey Williams rent the Infinity 250 and act in furtherance of the conspiracy? When you think about these overt acts, think how the criminal objectives. Ms. Hilton's going to talk to you and walk through bit by bit the murder itself of Donovan Thomas. But I argue to you, as she will too, that has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and that renting of the Infinity is an overt act that was used to facilitate the murder, and you've seen a pattern of rental cars being used.
There's also been evidence that rental cars are just handed out to anyone and everyone without thugs' knowledge. Jesus Christ, just showing autopsy pictures, bro. What?
Woonie Lee's comment, his comment, they're all talking about, and kind of joking sheepishly, about a murder of Donovan Thomas. It's we, it's us, it's criminal enterprise. We talked about Kendrick's tattoo, which is about to come up. I don't know when he got this tattoo, when the Zoom works with me and it comes up. I don't know if he had that tattoo of Slat on his arm while he's driving the Infinity 250 past 330 McDaniel Street and Nard and Shannon shot and killed Donovan Thomas, but that same green Slat ends up on the gravestone. It's not a coincidence. And they're telling you that they did it, and they just don't care. Because as you said when we started, slimes are above the law. But they didn't think about you. You hear it as clear as I hear it. I swear to God, nobody accused Dolly of murdering Donovan Thomas. Who's the we? And then you hear in the background, we smoke nut. And if you remember that call, right before that, Woody's saying, tell your brother I love him. And then you can hear Jeffrey Williams say, tell him I love him. Right there next to him. We killed Nut. We put it on his tombstone. Slap, and then just making a cheapest joke this years later. They're telling you we did it. They just don't care. And that's Shannon Stillwell in that same video, and there's a live snake and a YSL chain. It's out in the open. Beat a murder rap. This is Rodelius Ryan. This is Blaylock throwing up YSL, which is also an overt act, public display of allegiance. It's going to come up in just a second. That's Jamari Holmes. He will shoot at your fitted cap. And there's a literal fitted cap from Jamari Holmes' head with a bullet hole in it, and that's his skull with a bullet hole in it. This ain't, murder gang isn't some facade, this isn't for clout, this is real life. And this is the bragging and the boasting above the law and proving that they're doing it for the street gang. They're telling you, I think it's amply clear that this murder is gang related. It's to further YSL. You've heard about the Nibin matches, the double homicide of Christian McMillan and Darius Ford. You heard op hunting, all of the way that Garlington and Shannon talked about getting revenge. And what happens? They see an op at a gas station and 4 YSL members in a rented vehicle murder. And Shannon Stillwell's involved in both. And it's eerily similar to Donovan Thomas's murder. This is the corridor right there, and that is Shmyel Drink's vehicle with bullet holes on the same side of his car that Shannon Stillwell's Audi drove up in. It's not rocket science that he did it. The evidence has shown you he did. And it's 100% gang related. They're both part of the same rival group. There's no evidence about any kind of disagreement or anything with Shmyel Drinks. They did it for YSL. They did it to get revenge. And this is these public threats of violence when you're murdering people and throwing up YSL and bragging about it. That has a real effect of people who want to come in and testify or people that ever want to tell the police, period. These aren't just, a facade. This isn't just a movie. This is real life. And they're showing you and telling you what they're about. So I say take them out.
Miss Love shaking her head up and down.
And when they leave the gas station, from Walter Murphy's evidence, Nard and Walter Murphy come. It's one YSL member, OG Bentley. Maybe he was paranoid. Maybe someone was out to get him. But it wasn't D'Angelo White. It was not Dexter Montgomery. And this is their car when it stopped after the shooting at that stoplight. Cornelius Davis and Christian James. And that's the bullet that comes in through that car. And that's Dexter Montgomery with half his head shot off because they followed a YSL member to a gas station. We have this post, which is Overt Act 121. I'm free, death before dishonor. Quite similar to the tattoo that Shannon Stillwell has, YSL. And what does he say about it? And by he, I mean Jimmy Winfrey. Get Amina to get the paperwork to put it in black and white, because if not, it's going to look like street business. Because it is street business. They just don't want you to know. That's that deception piece. They don't want jurors to know. They don't want the police to know. So get it in paperwork so we can make it look legit. There's nothing legit about shooting a tour bus driver's car on the highway. This is the phone records. They move as a pack. They move as one. This is before, where Zachary, Winfrey, Sledge, McMullen, Greer, and Dolly are all in the general area of the vault. This is, when it's about to come up, is the compound, which is a little bit later. Zachary, Winfrey, McMullen, Greer, and Dolly, 142 to 304. They all have kind of similar times when they leave, similar times when they depart. She's just in her bed trying to drink a nightcap and just hang out. And what happens? They shoot at her because they think that her nephew or someone in YFN is there. That's not how it works in Fulton County. You don't just go shoot people's houses up because your op's there. When they post about guns, when they talk about guns, and then they tell you that they committed the crimes, it's not rocket science. You know, you take them at their word, what the evidence has shown. These kind of retaliation is, again, Demikion's jumped, we got to protect it. It's a us, it's a we, it's an enterprise, right? And they act together because you have strength in numbers, you know, protection and shootings. But this was a fist fight. It was a shooting in the parking lot. And then they go to other homes, travel intentionally down there and shoot. Again, they're moving together in concert. Did they think that was it reasonably foreseeable, understanding when they joined that multiple shootings would go on with YSL? You bet there is. You've seen it, right? They don't back up. They don't quit. They keep hanging out, shooting, and associating, and publicly bragging about YSL. And obviously in 2022, they're still trying to shoot and kill, shell, kill lots. You see how over time, it's the same acts. That's conspiracy. It's just right before you. Now, objective 4. Remember how I said at the beginning, sometimes those stolen firearms or the robberies can play up multiple ways? This is a good example of it. Money, weapons, and other property through acts of racketeering activity. So those robberies and thefts, you could find them as they conspired to violate B, to participate in the enterprise, or A, they conspired knowing that they could acquire and get property a lot easier. Either one. The evidence can sometimes fit multiple. This agreement to be a part of the enterprise, a pattern, and they all flow together, right? So evidence if they agreed, they go and shoot rivals together. We go and shoot the same rivals with the same people together. Evidence for agreement, evidence for pattern. Does the YSL enterprise exist? Is it a loosely formed group of individuals for a same common criminal purpose? All of these three kind of feed together. So this triangle is just a visual way to help think through this.
And he got the screen up on him.
Bloody DK, and I got the strap on me, and he throws up Rock Crew at the time. And he's just shooting at 12 for no reason. Another attack on law enforcement. That again, you don't want to get caught. We'll say before.
Bro, this is Christian Evinger being a fucking idiot. Like running from the police, shooting a cop. He's a goddamn idiot. Like he's not. This isn't in furtherance of YSL. It's not connected. He's running from the police. He's a wanted man. Did they overlay music on top of this footage of him shooting the officer?
This is that killing 12 shit. And that's Christian Evinger in the Cleveland Avenue area shooting Officer Rogers. That's not just words. That's a mentality of, again, slimes are above the law. And it's a public message of that. I can't think of a more clear, raw example of that than this. Don't just believe what they say, believe what they do. And he's just trying to arrest him. And what does Rodelius Ryan say after this happens? If you look at his TV screen, you're going to see Officer Rogers' photo pop up. And this is the message he has for his fellow YSL gang member after he just tried to attempt to murder Officer Rogers for doing his job.
Free gang.
That's in the hood.
Yeah, YSL shit.
YSL shit.
Yeah.
Just like the song said, YSL shit, killing 12 shit. This is Ryan bragging and boasting about his fellow gang member trying to shoot Officer Rogers. And then he says slap, right? This shows you how they view how people are in the witness stand, right, is quite different. But you don't want to get caught. You don't want people to come in here and tell him. It's as clear as that. Miss Bennett, Antonio Sumlin, Quindarius Zachary, Walter Murphy, Kenneth Copeland, about to be Adrian Bean up here. The awkward pauses, the kind of contemplation of, man, what am I going to say here? Or some bad piece of wiretap or jail call that gets played that doesn't sound good. But the conspiracy is, did they knowingly and willfully conspire to join YSL knowing that that could be a possibility? I think it's ludicrous to say otherwise, right? They knew exactly what they signed up for when they tattooed YSL on their body and shot people for YSL. And it can be from anyone. Within 4 years of each other, they're not in it for the long haul. You don't tattoo your face if you're just in something for a couple weeks. It's a permanent thing. And you've seen evidence in present day and evidence in the past that's shown that allegiance. And that's where this agreement, pattern, and enterprise all play together. You have agreement for the enterprise. There's a pattern of racketeering activity, shootings, murders, robberies that feed and promote the enterprise. That's RICO conspiracy, or the spot on Oak Drive where you heard testimony about. This is after the murder of Donovan Thomas. This is both what Copeland and Zachary say that they all went to get rid of the gun and to get rid of the car, because they don't want murder weapons to get caught with them, obviously. So the same individual who called Walter Murphy and Demise McMullen 3 months later when they pulled up with a stick, you don't think that Demise McMullen killed Donovan Thomas with Shannon Stillwell, Kendrick driving, and Justin Cobb, and then would go to his friend O.G. Bentley? Of course he would. And where do they go? I mean, 755, 750. This is McMullen and Williams.
What actual evidence do they have that Yak Gotti was driving that car? They don't have footage of him getting in the car. They have footage of him getting in a different car. They just say it happened behind the gas station. They have like no real hard evidence. Common
places to stash the store. You've heard about the Web. You've seen more recently Waters Road, and you used to hear reference about the dugout, but the Web and Waters Road come up frequently. What were some similarities between them? There are places where they can store their guns and can frequently go where no one's going to catch them or bother them. We're back at the Web. It's not Slug Spot. It's now My Spot. They exchange guns. They exchange locations to help the gang. It's quite simply that, right? They need a spot to be able to hang out and lay low. Instagram from Jeffrey Williams, if I didn't like what you did for your mothers and kids, I would have been killed you. That's 2019. And then you have, in 2020, coincidentally, Kendrick with slat and a stake on him standing on the same Mr. Bennett's car, right? A clear sign of disrespect.
Standing on that man's car, disrespect.
Not only do they shoot at his mother's house, murder his friends, tweet at him, disrespect his car, then they try to stab him and actually do stab him in the jail, but they try to kill him is what I meant to say.
Also keep in mind, it's 8 women and 4 men on the jury, 7 black women, 3 black men, 1 white man, and 1 white woman.
And that is the projectile that murdered Shmyel Drinks and the projectile that murdered Donovan Thomas. Same victims, right? You had Donovan Thomas with Lucci, and you saw how they treated Lucci. Now Donovan Thomas with Kelvin Watts, and you saw the connection. Similar victims over time with different YSL co-conspirators committing the crimes, often together. Not always the same, but similar patterns, which is important for RICO. it has to have, what is an enterprise, right? In this case, it's the criminal street gang. It's got to have a common purpose. It has to have a common kind of ongoing nature. It doesn't have to be a formal like employee roster or something like that. It can be a loose or informal relationship amongst them. It's as simple as that. You've seen how the way that YSL, the common identifiers and the way that they act and speak in concert shows that they have, I would argue, more than a loose relationship with one another. In determining that you can use the pattern to prove the enterprise. This is where the crimes themselves and how they're committed kind of help you. Is there an enterprise? Well, the way that they work in concert shows you that there is. So you see this connection and support where when one goes in jail and someone tries to jump Farley, the gang gets protection. And they may use an allied gang.
So they have a slide up that says RICO ? And they're just showing posts and association.
Lucci is trying to hurt Miles Farley. So there's connections between the acts. There's patterns in the interactions amongst each other. And if you take it a step further, then you have Winnie Lee with Shannon. You heard about No Slime Left Behind. Winnie Lee with Kendrick, actively promoting the gang. Yes, it may just be a photo, but when people think you murdered people, shot people, and got away with it, it has a different context to that. Are they a part of that street gang? Do they commit criminal street gang activity? For purposes of this indictment, the judge will instruct you that the street gang charges, the firearm possessed during the drugs for Kendrick, and the murder of Shmyel Drinks for Shannon Stillwell, both murder and possession of firearm during commission of a felony, which is the drugs, are criminal street gang activity. So all you really have to decide, in my mind, is there a nexus to the street gang? B is in order to maintain or increase status. So you'll see Shannon Stillwell has B. When he murdered Shmyel Drinks, do you think that was in order to boost his YSL street cred and increase his status? Of course it was. He had no personal disagreement with Shmyel Drinks. The only reason to murder him is because you saw all this public posting about get back, revenge, and he had that tweet I had earlier of up the score. When Shannon Stillwell committed that murder, it was to further the street gang. There's no other reason that makes any sense. And it would certainly boost his common signs, symbols, and tattoos. I only have a snippet. This is very similar to the first witness belt nap, right? Y'all have heard ample evidence of all these identifiers. You've heard about Slat, Slime, the Lizard, the Snake, the Green, Copeland with the hand sign. Y'all are basically gang experts at this point, probably yourselves, because you've heard a lot about it, but it's important to show you the evidence over time. Tattoos, I've talked a lot about these. I think it's important to, these permanent YSL lifestyle. This is Trontavia Stevens, that's Antonio Sumlin, that's Antonio Sumlin, that's the Diamante Kendrick, Slime Life, YSL, and then you have face tattoos, Javon Fleetwood, then you have Walter Murphy's gonna come up, and Christian Eppinger, public YSL tattoos on their face, essentially a walking billboard for the enterprise. Over and over and over, they show you we have guns, we use guns, we're not afraid to use it, believe them. The evidence has shown it. Gang detectives, I'm not gonna go through everything, I think you've heard a lot, right? And what they talked about was not fantasy. Gaither and Dennis, when they talked about getting woken up in the middle of the night with all of this 2015, they interviewed Walter Murphy, they interviewed Quindarius Zachary, they interviewed Copeland 6 times. Not an easy task. All of that stuff they did repeatedly. And Detective Belknap discussed the origins of Rock Crew, how it became YSL. He also mentioned how YSL, the street gang he started hearing about in schools before the record label was formed, and the rivalry between YSL and Inglewood family. I just simple 2 words, or I guess it's 3. 2015 first wave. This is waves of violence.
See, this is what I've been waiting for, is more concise, easier to understand, waves of violence with Detective Dennis and Gaither.
She told you about all these back and forth shootings in 2019 and 2020, and she talked about what was going on in just 1 month, March of 2022. And all of these social media she was clipping by, it seemed like almost an hour, to show this public disrespect. Same group, same victims, same rivalry in YSL and YFN. Nothing has changed except time. That's how you know it's a criminal enterprise actively afloat. Every slime plays nasty. What does Winnie Lee say about that? Yeah, they can argue that they're just trying to watch the local basketball game on the nightly news.
The ESPN got blowing because we're blowing it down.
He's got a gun and says ESPN because we're blowing people down. I mean, I don't know what else to say. This is Kendrick's tattoo. You're going to see, this is Miles Farley, ESPN tattooed on the back of his neck. This is going to be Christian Eppinger coming up here. Rise and Slime, ESPN, and I didn't clip it in there, but there's the song that Shannon Stillwell himself made where he literally says every slime plays nasty. So these are common phrases, identifiers, and by nasty, they mean violence.
It's almost like they know that their only chance at a guilty verdict is the RICO count, because I don't think they're going to get a guilty verdict for the murders.
I'm the DEO of this sex money murder set. You Belknap, Gaither, and Dennis talk about the sex money murder, where YSL is a subset of that, right? It's their own words. They're not hiding from it. They're not slat on the finger.
He keeps pointing that out. He's like, it's their own words. Let them tell you what they are.
Again, Miles Farley, when the OGs don't feed, it boosts up the crime rate, right? They're actively telling you what they're doing, which was in Rodelius Ryan's Instagram. You all saw this video. Again, take them at their word. Don't just take mine.
Wipe it over. Little baby rollout.
Cheap rollout for a small price. They do keep pistols and they do light people up, which means shooting at them. What is YSL about? I said the deception. You have the flash and the fame and the lifestyle. And it's all a joke. And then you have the reality of YSL street gang members exacting violence on members of their own community repeatedly over the years with impunity. The intimidation. I think y'all all know well what we've shown and walked through, the violence publicly about witnesses who come in and testify, the way that people get YSL amnesia, as I call it, when they sit in the witness stand and they can't remember entire years of their life. It's not believable, except there's real fear and there's real trepidation to coming into a court and testifying. Destruction. I don't have to go on this long. It clearly, has their actions and crimes have destroyed pockets of the communities in multiple communities in Fulton County. And death. You've heard about the murders that they've committed repeatedly. In Fulton County, you can get a driver's license, you can get a fishing license, but what you can't do as a criminal RICO enterprise is no one's above the law, and you don't have a license to kill, and you don't have a license to operate for impunity for a decade at citizens in Fulton County. Because it doesn't matter in Fulton County if you're the richest, if you're the poorest, it doesn't matter anything about who you are. You don't deserve to be victimized. And a criminal enterprise has a lot more power and strength. And the crime that they've done, the pattern, the evidence, the agreement that they've had publicly proclaiming it is clear that this RICO enterprise is very real. It's not just, it's more than just a conspiracy. It's alive and active. They willingly and knowingly agree to it, and they don't think that anyone will hold them accountable. But as you, as reasonable, fair-minded jurors, when you deliberate and walk through the evidence, and you compare the evidence with the law from the judge, there's no conclusion but guilty on count 1 RICO. And I argue it's both subsection A and B, but that's for y'all to decide. And these crimes charged, the criminal street gang and RICO, I ask you guilty on all those counts. Ms. Hilton will talk to you after the defense, and we'll talk to you about why the defendants are guilty of the charged murders of Donovan Thomas and Shmyel Drinks. Thank you.
All right, they're back from lunch break. Atkins' closing was a little all over the place. Probably a bit confusing for the jury. I mean, it was a lot of association and posts of YSL and everything. I mean, he bounced back and forth between 2015, 2013, and 2022 like 50 times, so. All right, the legendary Max SCHARDT. Closing arguments, boys. Here we go.
Accusations are easy to make. Allegations are easy to wage. And this indictment has plenty of both. But here's the thing. There's a big difference between making allegations and proving them in court beyond a reasonable doubt to the citizens of Fulton County. It's a different matter entirely. The state has spent the past year with a hammer in their hand, banging on a square peg that they call evidence. Banging, 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 trying so hard to fit that square peg into the round hole that they call their narrative, their theory. And the reality is that square peg does not fit in that round hole. It never fit. The state hasn't proven their case, and they certainly haven't proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. In this indictment, the state accused Shannon Stillwell in count 1 of conspiring to violate the Georgia RICO Act. He did not. They have not proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'm going to ask you to find Shannon Stillwell not guilty. In count 2, the state alleged that Shannon Stillwell on January 10, 2015 shot and killed Donovan Thomas. He did not. The state hasn't proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'm going to ask you to find Shannon Stillwell not guilty of count 2. In counts 49 through 54, the state has alleged that Shannon Stillwell on March 14, 2022 shot and killed Shmyel Drinks. He did not. The state has not proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'm going to ask you to find Shannon Stillwell not guilty. I want to acknowledge you, the jurors. I want to acknowledge the immense time commitment that you have given this case. I want to acknowledge the sacrifice to your family, the sacrifice to your job, the sacrifice to your vacation plans, the fact that you have been paying close attention to this case. And for that reason, I'm going to try to avoid rehashing every piece of evidence. I'm going to try to be as direct and concise as possible. Essentially, they're saying he conspired to acquire, maintain directly or indirectly an interest in and control of United States currency and other personal property through a pattern of racketeering activity. And while associated with an enterprise, did unlawfully conspire to conduct and participate in, directly or indirectly, such enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity. And that is the state's use of quote-unquote expert.
Let's go. He's diving in with gang expert. Because I hope all of you watching this realize a gang expert is complete horseshit.
Specifically, the gang investigators that they have called. We heard GGIA, Georgia Gang Investigators Association. We heard that a lot, about how there's 20 members. Remember, and we asked about what your training is, and they say, well, I go to the 2-day seminar every year. GGIA, there's 20 members. And then we learn who teaches at these seminars. Remember Detective Underwood? And Detective Underwood was a nice lady. But she was sent up here. They wanted her to testify about the intersection of gangs and music. And she clearly wasn't qualified. She knew almost nothing about music. But she said, yeah, I'm qualified because I think I did a 2-hour block a couple years ago on that. I think Viverito taught that class. So now Viverito is the teacher. So I asked her, I said, oh, very interesting. You took a 2-hour class a couple years ago in this subject, and that makes you an expert, okay? Did you guys hear from any experts in Black history, Black art, any literature professors, anyone that has studied hip hop, anyone from the hip hop community, anyone from the community at large, when you guys all meet, the 20 of you, to talk about gang stuff at this seminar? Nope. It was just Investigator Viverito. Okay, what about scholarly reports? Nope, just Investigator Viverito.
So they all have the same knowledge and experience, and they called 5 of them.
Experts about what their training is, what their background is, what their basis for testifying as experts and telling us how to analyze things, telling us what certain words mean, telling us what's gang related or not, telling us what's relevant and what's not. It all stems from these meetings, this echo chamber that they have.
Ooh, that's a good word, echo chamber.
Hear from no one else, no outside voices at all. And they all call each other experts. And they even created an association to look official. Think about Lieutenant Gaither, when she was on the stand. Remember when I was allowed to ask questions? I tried to ask her some questions when they weren't vague.
That's a shot at Gaither right there.
Did she really want to answer my questions? You know, you see on direct with the state, back and forth, it's like a tango. Yeah, it's a script. And then I get up, where another defense attorney gets up to ask questions. Can't get a simple answer for anything. What color is the sky? Oh, let me tell you about the FedEx video.
This is so good.
Commentary. Same thing with Investigator Viverito. Just unnecessary commentary. Avoiding answering questions that I ask. Clearly, Investigator Dennis was doing the same thing. He's out of here. He was sent home. Consider the manner that they testify and how much weight and credibility they really have in this matter. Think about their interest and lack of interest in the case, also known as their bias.
Pointing out something they got completely wrong here. This is Future's logo. It's not about rival gang.
This was a symbol of a gang war. This is the gang war that was going on. This is YSL declaring war on Bird Gang, which is an offshoot of the If Gang. Oh yeah, that's what it is. She told you that. As sure as can be. The expert that y'all are supposed to rely on. Well, what did my good friend, Attorney Brian Steele, do? Brought in the album cover. Wait a second. You're saying that this is a Hawk Skull and a gang war? Isn't this an album cover of a collaboration between my client, Young Thug, this is Attorney Steele talking, Young Thug and Future? And isn't his label Free Bands? And isn't Future's Free Bands mascot an eagle? Isn't this album cover signifying the collaboration between the eagle and the snake? Doesn't that make more sense? After all, that's exactly what the album is. Okay. What you saying? I run with cold-blooded killers. Blooded killers. That's with Marvius Nichols. That looks pretty bad. Looks bad. It's posted a day after this killing.
She screenshotted it on the exact millisecond that was popping up on the screen for a song, and this is song lyrics of Youngboy.
We find out that this was part of a post, a story that had a bunch of different posts about fear of roller coasters, about being sick, a whole bunch of different things. And then we finally get to the part where it has the lyrics from Youngboy Never Broke Again, right? We don't even see these lyrics. Why don't we see them on this post? Because they're on for a millisecond in the very beginning of the switch. And we hear about Instagram and how those aren't really words that Mr. Nichols would have typed. Those are words from a song that he picked. And sometimes you pick the lyrics if you want, and sometimes Instagram picks them for you. But what else do we see from watching the entire post? Those weren't even the featured lyrics. The lyrics were being transitioned to the lyrics that either Instagram or Mr. Nichols picked. But in a split millisecond, for whatever reason, these lyrics that Investigator Viverito so desperately wanted you guys to see were on the screen. And so what did Investigator Viverito do? She gets the post, she goes frame by frame until it gets to that exact point where it has what she feels looks like incriminating words by Mr. Nichols. Words that weren't even picked by him. And she freezes it, and she screenshots it, and then she puts it in front of you. Again, no report about what she did. She manipulated the evidence. What does that tell you about her? When we're talking about assessing credibility, your lack of interest in the case, your bias. Does she have an agenda when she does things like that? Of course she does. And so she had to fill out an affidavit to give it to a judge to get permission to convince the judge, basically, to give her permission to search Jeffrey Williams' home for evidence.
24M on an M-word head, completely out of context.
YSL rule the world, kid, 24M on an N head. Folds it and makes it bigger and circles it for the judge to draw attention to that. Because, of course, she wants the judge to feel that Mr. Williams is just ordering hits on people. That's the implication. That's the message she's sending the judge. And here I am. Investigator Viverito sat in that chair and said, she doubled down. And she said, you know what? Even knowing what I know now about 24M on an N's head, even knowing what I know now, I would still put it in that affidavit. That's all I needed to hear. Yeah, I would mislead a judge. Yeah, I would lie in an affidavit. Yeah, I would cheat because I'm that invested in this case. I'm that invested with taking these guys down.
Opening up Viverito's mouth and shitting in it right now. It's because what she said on the stand, she said she would double down on it.
Consider their credibility. Take what they say with a huge grain of salt. You don't have to believe what they say. You can disregard everything they say. The law allows you to do that. Some might be saying slap. A lot of times people are, and it's kind of sad to watch, a lot of people talking about all the stuff they got when we all know they really don't have anything. About all the cars they own. Remember that one gentleman? Oh yeah, I'm getting my daughter this, I'm getting my son that car. We saw those videos and I'm watching all these videos and I'm wondering, what's the point? Why is the state playing this? Just to show like bad kids or who they feel are bad kids? Just to show who they feel are future criminals? Like what's the point of these videos that are really sad to watch? And you see Jeffrey Williams leaning on a car and you see his emaciated body. You see his teeth that are rotten. And he's wearing pants that are clearly too short, too small, clearly been handed down, traded. They didn't come out of Phipps Plaza. You see him wearing a Alabama Letterman jacket.
Hold on. Let me wind it out. Hold on. My nigga, Lil Chell say he's the king of white swagging, right? Shut up one time. Let the lady folks see what you're doing now. You check him out now.
What happens there? I think about when I was young. If I had to struggle, if I had to wear clothes that I was embarrassed about, if I was embarrassed about anything, I would hide. I would run. I would stay inside. I'd be ashamed. I might lash out at people picking at me. But what happens there? Jeffrey Williams takes those clothes, those tattered clothes, those old clothes, those ill-fitting clothes, and he twists it. He turns it around. Nah, these aren't rags. This ain't nothing to be ashamed of. This is white boy swag. This is swag. Think about that for a second. What that means. And I'm not suggesting Shannon Stillwell saw that video, but that mindset. I'm not ashamed where I came from. In fact, I'm going to turn it into a positive. I'm going to turn it into a sense of pride. And you see someone that you know making it, and making it on his terms with that level of confidence. Now think about if you're Shannon Stillwell, raised by your grandmother, facing many of the same issues that Jeffrey's talking about, that he's rapping about, that these young men in Cleveland Avenue are facing, many of the same challenges. And then you also want to be a rapper. And all of a sudden, this person that you can identify with, this person that has the confidence you wish you had, this person that's taking everything negative and turning it into a positive. And then he raps too. And it's all blowing up in your backyard. And you want to be a musician. And you want to go into the studio.
So I think the narrative he's going for here is anyone who was in the same position as all these guys would go for it if they had the opportunity, if they saw Thug blowing up and shit.
You want studio time. And you know Jeffrey Williams and his friends have studio time because now they have backing. And studio time ain't cheap. And you want connections. Isn't that exactly who you'd want to associate with? Not to conspire to violate any RICO laws. You want to be there because he's doing what you want to do and you are identifying with him. No rules about false flagging. Anyone can do it. Everyone does do it. People all over the world wiping their nose. It's not false flagging because it's not a gang. When LeBron James does it, he's not false flagging because there's no gang. He's showing he identifies with the movement. He identifies with the confidence that Jeffrey Williams shows. He identifies with turning negative into positive. There's no gender rules in YSL, and there's no exclusions. Has the state proven that Shannon Stillwell knowingly and willfully conspired to participate in an enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity? Well, Mr. Atkins says, well, he killed Donovan Thomas, so that's proof right there. Well, that's pretty circular logic. He didn't kill Donovan Thomas. Well, he killed Shmyel Drinks. That's proof right there. No, he didn't kill Shmyel Drinks. What have they proven Shannon Stillwell's done to say that he knowingly and willfully conspired to do anything other than to be around Jeffrey Williams and try to make music and further his rap career and be around people that he identified with? He's been in social media pictures with many of the people that he hangs out with. Okay. He uses the word slat, uses a green snake emoji. Okay. A lot of people do that. Who's going to tell LeBron that he's acting like a RICO conspirator? Who's going to tell LeBron that he's now a hybrid gang member? In fact, we just heard what the state said about wiping the nose meant, according to the gang experts. Who's going to tell LeBron that he's like ordering a hit in the middle of NBA warm-ups? Is what the gang investigators say, should we really take it? Hook, line, and sinker? There's no doubt that people with YSL tattoos, there's no doubt that people that say slat have committed crimes. No one's disputing that. Isolated crimes by an individual or a group of individuals that have nothing to do with any alleged conspiracy cannot be overt acts. It's not just crimes that or other acts that are alleged against people associated with YSL. The acts must further the criminal objectives of the alleged conspiracy. Artistic expression. Jeffrey's lyrics. When Jeffrey says slat in a song or slime in a song, which is recognized worldwide and is popular and sells albums, we're going to pretend that there's no context to this and we're just going to pretend that all these lyrics are somehow designed to further a RICO organization. That's absurd. We're going to pretend Shannon Stillwell's statements about bragging about beating a murder rap, which is good for his music career, is somehow furthering some criminal objectives, some conspiracy. That's absurd. They list in their list of overt acts a bunch of social media posts. Social media posts of people with tattoos on their face. Nothing else. Just, oh, he took a picture with a tattoo on his face. Slime clothing or Make America Slime Again clothing. Clothing created, mind you, by Miles Farley, a person who was able to, again, turn negative into positive and turn that movement that was going on in Cleveland Avenue in a way for him to make money through selling clothing, for him to provide to his family. Okay, yeah, but when you sold it and made a profit, who are you going to share the money with? They look at me like I was crazy. Man, this is a $100 bag of weed. I ain't sharing money with anyone. I'm a drug dealer. I buy drugs and I sell drugs and I make a profit and I keep the profit. What evidence have we seen at all that any of this petty drug dealing had anything to do with furthering some criminal enterprise? It's isolated acts. They list gun possession. 2019, they say Shannon Stillwell was possession of a gun in furtherance of the criminal objectives of the conspiracy. Man, ever since Shannon Stillwell was falsely accused of killing Donovan Thomas in 2015 about people shooting at his head, people shooting at the car he's in, people are trying to kill him. And you think he's possessing a gun as some furtherance of some conspiracy? Does that make any sense? He's trying to survive. The murder of Jamari Holmes. Tragic event.
An interesting tweet here. Kathy said, during Max's closing, juror seems attentive. Some are moving in their seats quite often. The seemingly uninterested female juror continues to give off a vibe that she's over it. People are still taking notes. So one of them seems to be over it completely. Jurors seem engaged. Some leaned forward taking in the closing. Some are taking notes. Though there's one juror who's leaned back and her body language doesn't seem too interested. So she just doesn't give a fuck about it.
It was like a 15-year-old doing something incredibly stupid. What objectives was that furthering? It wasn't. It's an isolated act committed by someone who screams out YSL and screams out SLAT. But that doesn't mean it's furthering any conspiracy. We hear about Jaden Myrick. First of all, who the heck is Jaden Myrick? I know they put him on this indictment, like to try to say, oh yeah, he's a co-conspirator in this too. But they're the ones that put his name on this indictment. What have we heard about Jaden Myrick? We ever hear about Jaden Myrick ever meeting Shannon Stillwell? Do we have any indication that Jaden Myrick knows Shannon Stillwell?
That was something I thought about too, because they obviously put a lot into the Lucci stabbing, which Jaden stabbed Lucci, but there wasn't any evidence that Jaden knew anyone, like no connection, no pictures or anything.
What about Jeffrey Williams? Any indication that Jaden Myrick knows Jeffrey Williams? Who the heck's Jaden Myrick? But some dope in the jail that's looking to make money by doing something incredibly stupid and attacking Rashawn Bennett. So he calls another dope, and they come up with their own little plan, but it has nothing to do with some broad conspiracy that Shannon Stillwell willfully and knowingly joined. Somehow Christian Ebinger making that idiotic decision to shoot an officer to avoid being arrested, somehow that is in furtherance of some conspiracy that Shannon Stillwell knowingly and willfully joined?
It's not connected at all.
In review of count one, ladies and gentlemen, YSL is many things. It's not a gang, full-fledged or hybrid. And it's certainly not a RICO enterprise. Shannon Stillwell, in associating himself with Jeffrey Williams and Trontavious Stevens and Quamarvius Nichols, his good friend, and Miles Farley and others, and Wooney Lee, he wasn't knowingly and willfully conspiring with anyone to participate in any enterprise aimed at a pattern of racketeering activity. He was in the mix. He was trying to make music. He was also, coincidentally, if we're being honest, he was selling drugs. He wasn't sharing them with anyone. He wasn't sharing the profits. He was selling drugs and trying to make music. And he was around the right people to be trying to do that with, because those connections were going to, in his mind, further his music career, which is what he wanted. And no overt acts were ever committed in furtherance of any conspiracy that Shannon Stillwell knowingly and willfully joined. The state has to prove every element of that charge beyond a reasonable doubt. They have failed. There is reasonable doubt. It's not true. And your verdict on count one must be not guilty. That type of music exists. That type of music is popular. And that's the type of music that Shannon Stillwell was doing. We heard about the common terms in this drill music: ops, glizzy, blicky, red lights. And we heard 5 of Shannon's songs. We heard Slat Talk, Lizard Walk, Red Light, featuring B-Slime and Vito, Bull, SHIT, with Dolly, Jeffrey's sister, and Ran This Money with Slime Life Shorty, a signed artist who had already made it, at least to a certain degree. We hear about all sorts of violence. We hear about red lights. We hear about glizzies, walk 'em down, homicides, FNs. We hear it all. And out of context, it doesn't paint Shannon Stillwell in the best light. And I don't think I've ever claimed that Shannon Stillwell is an angel either. But it is art. When he references beating a murder rap, when he keeps bringing up Donovan Thomas, it's not a confession. That's what he's known for. That's his selling point in this type of music that celebrates it, much to some of our chagrin. Why does he keep referencing Donovan Thomas? Years later, he's already been arrested for this charge. Wouldn't he be quiet about it? He would if he did it. But why does he keep bringing up Donovan Thomas? Well, I have 2 things for you to consider. Maybe, just maybe, on that particular day, in June of 2022, Shannon Stillwell had enough. For 7 years, the police put a target on his back, and people had been shooting at him. He was shot at the Green Store. They shot at his head. He was so bold to go to JJ's Chicken and Fish to get himself some food with the mother of his child and another female who was driving. He was so bold to do that, that when they left that parking lot, 3 men in a car sped up behind him and shot at that car, riddling the back of that car with bullets, shooting poor Tierra Jones in the face, instantly killing the driver, Miss Jones, causing the car to careen and turn over and over and over, severely injuring Mr. Stillwell, scarring his head to this day, putting him in the hospital for months, putting the mother of his child in the hospital. When the police come to talk to Mr. Stillwell, remember what he does? He feels bad about the situation. He feels awful. He asks the officer, can I write a letter of remorse to Tierra Jones' family? And he does. And then the officer says, well, can you talk to me about the case? And know what he does? He talks to the officers about the case. And he gives names. He gives names of the people that he feels were in that car, that red car that sped up behind him, tried to kill him, and kill Tierra Jones. He gave up those names. Shannon Stillwell had dared talk to the police to try to help solve the senseless murder of an innocent woman, was broadcast on Instagram and social media. And people were chastising Shannon Stillwell and coming at him on social media and in real life over the fact that he made such a ridiculous decision as to try to bring justice to Tierra Jones' family. That was his reward for that. So yeah, people shooting at his head, narrowly missing at the Green Store. People shooting at him in a car, killing someone in the car and putting him in the hospital. People chastising him online for being so bold to tell the police what happened, who killed Tierra Jones, poor Tierra Jones. Maybe in January 2022, just maybe, possibly, he had enough. He was sick of the nonsense. If you want to say it, then I'll be it. Remember that song, Homicide, by Lil Woody, Kenneth Copeland, who played the role of the assassin? Threat, Trevante Turner. You watched the video. I don't think we need to watch it again. Who gets killed? someone who looks like Donovan Thomas, who put money on his head. If songs are confessions, then Kenneth Copeland is confessed.
Adding doubt to the whole situation. Point out that Woody could have killed Donovan Thomas, but he's on to the nut murder now.
This man who's saying his name is Nicholas Robinson, this man who's telling Detective Thorpe his name is Nicholas Robinson, his name is actually Spencer Wright. So she goes and tells Thorpe. And what does Thorpe do? He's interviewing someone about what they allegedly saw in this high-profile case, and this person has just lied to him about his name. What does Thorpe do? He continues to interview him. And in the very next day, he goes out and takes warrants on 4 people, including my client.
All based off a person who's lying about their name. Yeah. But yeah, he was never on the footage where he said he was.
On what bench? Where? Circle it on his picture. And about how he went to look at the surveillance himself. And what did he see? An empty bench. Spencer Wright not only lied about his name, but he lied about a lot more. But know who he duped? Detective Thorpe. We have no ballistics from the Donovan Thomas case, no DNA or fingerprints. We have an infinity car, which we will talk about in a minute as well. But essentially this case, this Donovan Thomas case, comes down to 2 witnesses. And in my opening, I warned you all about people wearing the Fulton County blues. That was the theme of my opening. Rice Street is a disgusting, horrible place. Being locked up anywhere is awful. And there are people who will lie on other people to stay out of Rice Street. You don't believe me? Spencer Wright, Nicholas Robinson. He's the proof of concept right there. Getting locked up, wants to talk to the detective, and then completely makes things up. And the next day, warrants are being signed. This is not some theory that I have that people lie to get themselves out of trouble. It's proven. Spencer Wright did it. Quindarius Zachary, is he on this indictment? Nope. Kenneth Copeland, is he on this indictment? Are any of us going to really sit here and pretend that if the state was really being honest about who to charge about the events in 2015, 2014, 2015, that Kenneth Copeland wouldn't be on that indictment?
It makes absolutely no sense. Woody would 100% be on that indictment. There's a reason for that.
He's not on this indictment. Quindarius Zachary was a straw purchaser for guns. Quindarius Zachary, right in the middle, the impetus for one of the Overt acts, the April 28th, 2015 shooting of houses. He's right in the middle of this. And they're not on the indictment? And we're supposed to pretend that the state aren't the ones that chose Kenneth Copeland and Quindarius Zachary as their witnesses? Of course they did. They are 2 people that happened to put themselves in situations, serious situations, that would require them to lie on others to get themselves out of trouble. Those were their 2 qualifications. And the state said, sounds good. We'll sign you up. You're our witnesses. You're no longer on this indictment.
SCHARDT's doing a good job so far, in my opinion.
So as a result of his lie, he gets charged with these 2 felonies. False statement and false report of a crime. And it's pending, and it's pending, and it's pending. Then all of a sudden,
I remember this now. They dropped the charge suddenly.
As this case is ramping up, and Mr. Copeland's going to have to take a stand and be asked about his pending charges and his prior lies, all of a sudden, on January 18th, 2024, Fannie Willis and her employee, Kenneth Hutcherson, quietly dismissed the case against Kenneth Copeland. The case of false statement, a case of false report of a crime. Oh, we actually looked at the video again and it actually supported Kenneth Copeland? No. Was it the victim didn't want to prosecute? No. Prosecutorial discretion. But they decided it was in their best interest to dismiss that case against Kenneth Copeland before he testified. Remember I told Kenneth Copeland about it? Thought he was going to get up and hug me. He said, my case is dismissed? Yeah, sure was. State took care of you. You're not on this indictment either. Kenneth Copeland's a liar. He's a proven liar. And let's talk about his prior statements he made, because we know on June 10, 2015 is when he said Demekion Garlington gave him certain information and that Shannon Stillwell was one of the people responsible for killing Donovan Thomas. Demekion told him at the McDonald's. That's what Kenneth Copeland said on June 10, 2015. Kenneth Copeland actually met with the police in 2015 4 times prior to that June 10, 2015 interview. If it were true, Kenneth Copeland would have that knowledge of what Demekion Garlington said to him for all these meetings. January 11, 2015, he goes in to talk to Thorpe. Doesn't say anything.
So now he's getting into Woody lying during interviews.
And he's asked about, specifically by Detective Thorpe, if he's ever rented or driven an Infiniti. And what does Kenneth Copeland say? No, never. Denies it completely. That's on January 11th.
Definitely a lie, because he admitted to driving the car days before. The bumper popped off on the highway or whatever.
Kenneth Copeland was in the Infiniti on the night of January 9th with Quindarius Zachary. So he lies right off the bat to Detective Thorpe. Lie after lie after lie. Denying beef with Donovan Thomas, denying stealing Donovan Thomas's chain, denying ever being in an Infiniti. It shows Mr. Copeland wearing street clothes, civilian clothes, not a blue jumpsuit. But let's not get confused, let's not get it twisted. On June 10, 2015, Kenneth Copeland, for the first time, was headed to jail for serious charges.
So that's the reason why he was yapping, eh?
You're an career criminal. We got you dead to rights. You're facing 15 plus 10. That's 25. No parole. You're not going to get out till you're 48. And that's not even including the conspiracies. You won't see your children until you're 48. You see what goes on here? This isn't an accident. This is the playbook. Get the liar, get him jammed up, threaten him, tell him he's not going to see his kids again until he's 48, and then, oh, but maybe we can do something for you. You just got to give us what we want. A person who fully admits that he would lie on anyone to get out of jail, to stay out of jail, to get out of trouble, that was enough to coax him to make up a story about Shannon Stillwell and others. Plan in motion because he knew someone was going to have to back up his story, and that was enough to have him reach out to Demekion Garlington and try to get Demekion Garlington to go out and go on with the story, which of course, Mr. Copeland told us he's no longer friends with Mr. Garlington. You're going to have to answer these auto breakings. Why do you have all this property and these cars? We know you're involved. Remember what he said? Nah, that was Lil Mike and Quez that did them. Remember the detectives? They looked at each other, Lil Mike and Quez, Lil Mike and Quez.
What do you made up 2 random names, bro?
Little Mike and Quez, they don't exist. He made them up on the spot on June 10th of 2015. So my answer to you, if you think, oh, this pressure was needed to get Kenneth Copeland to finally be truthful, he was lying. He made up people that didn't exist in this very statement that the state wants you to take as truthful from one of the biggest liars we've ever seen in our lives. First of all, what did Quindarius Zachary say at trial? That he lied on Shannon in 2 prior statements. One August 5th, 2015 to Lieutenant Gaither, and then one in a proffer session on March 3rd of 2017. And he also admitted on cross-examination that even those 2 statements, those 2 lies he told about Shannon Stillwell were not even consistent with each other. But none of the police seemed to mind. None of the prosecutors seemed to mind. The night of the Donovan Thomas killing, Shannon Stillwell confessed to me at Jeffrey Williams' condo. And then he also went on to lie about Shannon Stillwell on this August 5th, 2015 statement, lied about Shannon Stillwell's involvement in really a bunch of other cases. Cases that Shannon Stillwell has never been charged with. He just lied on Shannon. And he admitted his motivation for lying on Shannon. Knew, or he was under the belief, that when he talked to the police, when he talked to Lieutenant Gaither, first of all, he needed to get bond. He had been locked up for about 7 days. His family had been calling Gaither, we heard about that, begging her to go up and talk to him. What was the urgency? Well, we didn't get into details, but we learned that Mr. Zachary has a serious illness that he wasn't going to fare well at Rice Street under those conditions. So he needed to get out. So he has people calling Gaither, come see me, I want to talk to you. I wasn't there. The only reason I know about it is because Demekion Garlington told me the next day. So immediately, he's lying to the police, saying he wasn't there, which of course we know he was there. Lieutenant Gaither knows he was there. But what's his explanation? It's odd. It's interesting. It seems to be a recurring theme. I wasn't there, but, and where did he say was also? I was at home because I'm always sick, right? I was at home, I'm always sick, I wasn't there, and the only reason I know about this is because Demekion Garlington the next day confessed to me. Seeing a pattern? Everyone's always confessing to Quindarius Zachary, according to Quindarius Zachary.
Dude, Quindarius Zachary's credibility is pretty much nothing. Like, he got destroyed on the stand, man.
Of course, that was a lie. Demekion Garlington had not confessed to him. That was made up. He made up a story about someone confessing to him. And in fact, he was there. In real life, like this, if it really happened. If a friend of mine came up to me and said, Max, I have something to tell you. Earlier tonight, I murdered one of the most powerful gang members in all of Atlanta. I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that I would remember exactly where I was when he said it. I would know exactly what was going on, where we were, who else was there, and what exactly was said. Because that's the type of thing you wouldn't forget. That's the type of thing you wouldn't forget details of. But what do we know about Quindarius Zachary's renditions of this alleged confession by Shannon Stillwell? He said, we caught Nut down bad. And then, according to Mr. Zachary, on August 5th, 2015, Shannon Stillwell also named 3 other individuals in the car. That was his statement on August 5th, 2015. But then on March 3rd, 2017, he's asked about the same alleged confession. And it's, oh, Shannon just told me he caught Nut down bad. And he didn't give me any other details at all. Didn't say anyone else who was in the car. What about the timing of the confession? On August 5th, 2015, Quindarius Zachary claims the confession occurred just as he and Muntunk pulled up to Jeffrey's condo. And Shannon was about to go to a girl's house. And we crossed paths, and he confessed to me.
Dude, they're all over the place.
Shannon didn't show up till later that night, till about 4 or 5 a.m. He was dropped off by some girls. I know because I let him into the condo. How did those details change about something that would stick in your mind if it were true? And the answer is because it's not true. Because it was a story that was made up by Quindarius Zachary, who was facing 185 years, who needed to get out of jail because he had a serious illness, who knew that the gun he had been arrested with was going to be linked to other crimes. And just like Kenneth Copeland, he was someone that was willing to lie to get himself out of trouble. And at that particular time, the state, the investigators, and everyone else had enough leverage on him to force him to make that decision to lie on someone else. So we got these 2 liars who were strategically interviewed at the very time they're most likely to lie. Wouldn't it be cool if we had some corroboration?
Two liars strategically interviewed.
This does not give exact locations. First of all, it's just devices, not people. But it doesn't give exact locations. It doesn't tell you where people were. It gives a general area. It tells you what cell phone may have been closest to the device when it was being used. And these cell phone towers have all different radiuses and all different signal strengths. So you just get a general idea. You got to be very careful about what you read into these cell phone records. That's what he said, the expert. And yes, he talked about different people calling different people that know each other calling different people on January 10, 2015. Shouldn't be that surprising. What did they say about Shannon Stillwell? Where did they say he was? Go look at those phone records. Did they provide any cell phone records for Shannon Stillwell? How about Diamante Kendrick? What is the power of those cell phone records again? What did they corroborate? Did they have Kenneth Copeland wear a wire? Remember when he was so desperate to get out of jail? I'll wear a wire.
They really don't have much for Shannon and Yak, dude. For the Donovan Thomas murder specifically.
The McDonald's at Old Hateville and Cleveland Avenue. The very spot where Kenneth Copeland claims in his story that everyone met and that Demekion Garlington told him who killed Donovan Thomas. Well, we know the McDonald's has surveillance. That's been testified to by several officers. And we know we don't have the McDonald's surveillance for January 10th, 2015. Attorney Steele asks, I ask, other attorneys ask. First we asked Gaither, did you ever try to get surveillance to McDonald's? And what did she say? Oh, we went like 2 or 3 months later, we went and we talked to a general manager and they weren't able to get into the cameras right then, but we took the card and we gave the card to Thorpe. That was her explanation of the efforts to get camera footage from the McDonald's. I said, okay, do you have that in a report? That you drove down to McDonald's and talked to, who was the person you talked to? What was their title? What was their name? Where's the card? Oh, no, I don't have that in a report. Okay, so then we asked Thorpe, what did you do to get surveillance from the McDonald's to corroborate anything Kenneth Copeland said? And this is where it gets ugly. He said, I went a couple days later and I talked to the people and they said the footage had been erased. The 15-day or however many days the cycle is ended and all the footage was erased and it started all over again. That piqued our interest because everyone knows that's not the way surveillance cameras work.
Yes, that's why they always asked about how surveillance systems work, because that's not really how it works.
Every one of them said they never heard of a surveillance system just erasing all at one time. Every single one of them means Detective Thorpe lied to us. He lied to y'all. He didn't go to try to get that surveillance from the McDonald's. He didn't go 2 days later. What did we hear from D.A. Sprinkle? Remember that? And that's a straight shooter, D.A. Sprinkle. What did D.A. Sprinkle said when we asked him about it? Hey, did Detective Thorpe ever mention trying to go get the footage from the McDonald's? Did that ever come up? Because, we've been asking a lot about this McDonald's footage. What did D.A. Sprinkle say? Detective Thorpe never brought that up to me.
I actually do believe that was a lie. The way Thorpe even responded seemed like a lie.
I know of someone who, with Trevante Turner, went and shot up Rich Homie Kwan's father's barbershop in 2014. I know of someone who stole Donovan Thomas's nut chain.
I mean, a lot of signs do point to a beef between Woody and Nut, for sure.
And cell phone out of his truck in late 2014. And when asked about it by the police, repeatedly lied about that situation. Repeatedly pretended that him and Donovan Thomas were cool. I know someone who was jumped by Kelvin Watts in Club Crucial on January 6, 2015. I know someone who basically admitted on the stand, I'm listening, to shooting up the TIG studios at 675 Metropolitan Avenue on January 8, 2015, 2 days before Donovan Thomas's death. Shot a hole in Rich Homie Kwan's windshield. And if you recall from the officer who responded to the scene, a shooting that very well may have occurred while Donovan Thomas was present. Remember, I asked that officer, were there people there in the studio at the time? Yes, there were. Who were they? I don't know. They wouldn't open the door. An Infinity that Kenneth Copeland was in possession of the day before the Donovan Thomas shooting. An Infinity which was last known to be in the hands of Kenneth Copeland and Quindarius Zachary before, according to Kenneth Copeland, he handed it off to his good friend, closest associate, partner in shooting up Rich Homie Kwan's father's barbershop, Trevante Turner, also known as Threat.
I mean, it's kind of crazy, right? The murder vehicle, the state says is a murder vehicle, and it's literally a fact. Woody literally admits he was in that car.
Investigator Viverito, all these posts that Kelvin Watts has made, has he been charged? And the answer was no. And why was the answer no? Because posts on the internet about the death of people, even claims of responsibility, such as putting two shells under your own eyes, that's not enough to charge someone. That's not a confession. Investigator Viverito said the reality is, in this day and age, under these circumstances, dealing in this situation with the drill music and everything else, there's false claiming going on all the time. We can't go by what's on the internet. We can't go by what people post. That's not a confession. That's what we learned from Investigator Viverito. That's what she was forced to concede when we talked about the Christian McMiller and Darius Ford deaths. I'm not an expert. I'm not saying it is, but I'm just going to kind of hypothesize in front of the jury that it's a Glock 27 and they shoot 40 caliber bullets. Okay, you're not an expert, but you're throwing that in front of the jury. Never said it before until you're on the stand. And what's your experience with Glock 27s? Well, one time I went to the gun store and I was trying to decide what kind of gun to buy, and I held a Glock 27. That's it. Think about Investigator Viverito and her bias and her trying to sway you and identify or claim to identify a firearm and make it model from that picture and what her basis is, what her real basis is. Any evidence that Mr. Stillwell ever possessed that gun? And what did she say? She just can't answer no, because of course there's no evidence that Mr. Stillwell has ever possessed that gun. She said, well, do you have any evidence? Or I don't have any evidence that he didn't. Well, geez, that's an interesting shifting of the burden of proof from the state's witness. She's biased. She came in there to try to solve a key problem of the state's case, which is that Mr. Stillwell is not linked to any weapon that could possibly shoot the fatal bullets in the Shmyel Drinks case.
I mean, that you can't dispute that. There's no link of Shannon to the murder weapon of any kind. Zero. Even the guns he got caught with, like none of them.
He's on a contraband phone. I'm not saying that's right, but let's think about that scenario for a second. We've been sitting here for a year listening to the same. This call is subject to being recorded, right? Every time someone comes from the jail, because it is recorded.
He doesn't know that the other end is wiretap. Like on the jail calls, he knows he's being recorded, but on this, he has no idea. This should be the phone where he spills a lot of beans, but nothing spilled.
Mr. Garlington's phone is tapped. Mr. Garlington doesn't know his phone is tapped. As far as they're concerned, they're having a private conversation. They have cut out the recording and are having a private conversation about March 14th, 2022. And what do they say? In this private conversation that they're having, they're not saying, oh, how can we cover this up? Oh, I think they're onto us. Oh no, I think they got us. They're saying, we didn't do anything. They're just assuming we did stuff because we're at the gas station, which is a fact that we have never denied. They were in fact at the gas station. They're having a private conversation and they're talking about how innocent they are and how the police got it wrong. And Mr. Stillwell is just saying, let's let it work itself out. No one said the car has been cleaned. It's going to come back clean, is what was said. Does Mr. Stillwell sound like an expert in gunshot residue there? Does he really sound like someone that's going to say, oh, I have so much inside knowledge on this forensic work that the police do on the inside of cars that we must clean the headliner of all things? No. He sounds like someone who knows that they were in a car on March 14th, 2022, knows that they were at the BP, knows that they left and they drove down Windsor Street, and knows, despite the fact that he's been arrested falsely for killing another gentleman, he knows in his heart that no gun was fired by him inside that car or outside that car. That's how he knows it's going to come back clean. If this was a car that was involved in a homicide on March 14th, let's consider Mr. Stillwell's actions after the fact. I don't know. It seems logical to me that if I'm in a rental car and I use it as part of a homicide, the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of said rental car. Distance myself from the rental car. It's on video at the BP. It's on video on Windsor Street. There's surveillance cameras all over the place in Atlanta. The first thing anyone would do if they committed a crime as heinous as this in a rental car is get rid of it.
It's a good point. I mean, they went to the studio that night. They were in the studio for hours after the murder, and then he continued to have the car for days.
Well, first of all, he runs into Investigator Viverito at 2830 Waters Road a day after the homicide, wearing the same clothes he was wearing in the BP, by the way, not really concealing his identity there. And he tells Investigator Viverito, yeah, that's the car I'm in. That's the car I'm riding in. And then what does he do later in the day on the 16th? Does he go Griffin, Georgia and burn it in some back road somewhere? Does he go drop it off in Alabama? No. He calls Alamo and extends the rental until the 20th. Ask yourselves, really? Are those the actions of someone with a guilty conscience? Are those the actions of someone who committed a crime in a rental car? Absolutely not. Why is he doing these things? Because just like how he knows the car is going to come back clean, he knows he didn't do anything in that car. He knows he's innocent. He has no reason to get rid of the car. The ability to move body parts up and down would be immediately lost. That came out in her testimony. Now, the state followed up and said, is it possible if Mr. Drinks' foot was already on the brake when he was shot? Is it possible for his foot to remain on the brake? And Dr. Sims Stanley's answer was yes. And of course it is, because staying on the brake does not require any conscious bodily movement. But on cross, I asked a very simple question. Is it possible, after being shot, that shot in the neck, that Mr. Drinks would be able to actively move his foot up and down off the brake? Unequivocally, with no hesitation, Dr. Sims Stanley said no, that would not be possible.
Like Shannon leaves, random car pulls up next to the Shmyel's car, and Shmyel's brake lights are going on and off. Like that's definitely weird, right?
Mr. Drinks, after being shot in the neck, to move his foot up and down off that brake. We're going to get, and he didn't just use one tab, he used two. And he dabbed that headliner again and again and again until one tab lost stickiness, and then he moved to the other tab and continued to dab. And what is he dabbing for? Microscopic particles of gunshot residue that are emitted from a gun when it is fired. And he takes these tabs that he's been dabbing on the headliner, and then he looks at it under a microscope, under an electron beam, to look for microscopic particles, of which there are many emitted from a gun when it is fired. A plume of them are emitted from the gun when it is fired. And he looked under that electron microscope, and his results were negative. And what does negative mean? Negative doesn't mean, oh, it's under some threshold, under 5 per cubic foot or anything like that. Negative means 0. 0 particles collected off that headliner.
Really good evidence for the defense there.
16 seconds after Mr. Stillwell has been long gone. 18 seconds after Mr. Stillwell leaves, we're going to see a 5th car make an unexplained U-turn. 30 seconds after Mr. Stillwell has pulled off, we're going to see Mr. Drink's brake lights flicker on and off again.
30 seconds after Shannon leaves.
For a 3rd time, 33 seconds after Mr. Stillwell has pulled off, we're going to see Mr. Drink's brake lights go on and off once again. Investigator Viverito wasn't correct. It doesn't happen one time. The brakes go on and off 3 different times in this video. And we're going to watch it. Okay, right here, we have 3 cars lined up. Mr. Drink's red Versa on the left, Mr. Stillwell in the white Audi in the middle, and Mr. Nichols and Mr. Boyer, according to the state, and Mr. Farley in the right. I invite you, when you're deliberating, I invite you right now, when you're deliberating later on, if you need to review this video, you can look as many times as you want. I want you to look to see if you see a muzzle flash. At any time when Mr. Stillwell's car is next to Mr. We see a 4th car speed up behind Mr. Stillwell. And Mr. Stillwell leaves. What's going through Mr. Stillwell's mind right now? Is it that common theme of drill music that he knows about? Red light, shit real out here, running through the red light, looking through your rear view, and might just sneak up on the car and try to spray you? Is that what's going on in Mr. Stillwell's mind? Is that what he's thinking about as he sees this 4th car speed up behind him? Or maybe he's thinking about that night, September 26, 2015, when he was in that car with Tierra Jones in this Duncan, and that car sped up behind them and started spraying the car they were in through the rear windshield. Either way, Mr. Stillwell gets on. Mr. Nichols, apparently confused, is trying to figure out what's going on, and he eventually leaves as well. That 4th car, not Mr. Stillwell's car, that 4th car that has never been identified, has never been tested for gunshot residue, is now next to Mr. Drinks. And there's a 5th car driving up the street, driving up Windsor Street. And let's see what happens. Okay, I want you to look closely. Right here, we're going to see the 5th car make a sudden U-turn. Is there someone in the street? Is there someone waiting in that car to make that U-turn? Is there an obstruction? Is there anything going on that would explain why that car makes that U-turn at that exact time? No, there's not. There's one explanation. Hold on, Mr. Kokomo. There's one explanation and one explanation only. That car hears a gunshot. And while that car makes a U-turn, I want you to look at Mr. Drinks' brake lights. They flicker on and off. That means he's not dead. He has not been shot in the neck yet. That's science. That's from Dr. Sim Stanley herself.
That's science. Okay, Shard.
We see a slight flicker of the brake light right there. And then if we play it again, and no more flickers. At that moment, tragically, the fatal shot was fired from that 4th car into Mr. Drinks' red Versa, going into his neck, causing him to immediately lose all bodily control, and eventually leading to his imminent death. And that white car, that 4th car, leaves the scene.
The Shmyel Drinks murder, there's too much doubt with that one.
The prosecutors and gang investigators in this case have had their hammer out, trying to bang that square peg, their evidence, into that round hole, which is their narrative. And it still doesn't fit. It never will fit. That album cover that they tried to bang on and make it be a gang declaration of war, it never was, it never will be. That video of Antonio Sledge that they claim is an overt act, that they wouldn't, where Antonio Sledge is threatening another man because they're both having sex with the same lady, and he's upset and he's in his emotions. Remember that? How they wouldn't let Antonio Sledge enter a guilty plea. They wouldn't let him go home to his sick mother, go home to his kids, until he signed the plea deal that said that somehow that this is gang related. Just banging, trying to make it fit. Of course it wasn't gang related. They're both having relations with the same girl. It was over a girl. It had nothing to do with gangs. But they tried to make it fit. 24M on N's head. They say it's putting money on someone's head, ordering an assassination, and they bang and try to make it fit. Of course it had nothing to do with that. We all know what that was about. And the gang investigators do it too. No rules, no initiation, no jumping in, nothing that is synonymous with gangs as we know it, letting whomever wants to be part of the group in on their own terms, out on their own terms, worldwide, people identifying with...
Shard just banging through this right now.
Only dabbed on certain parts that didn't have GSR, as if GSR all accumulates in one little spot, as if it's not a plume, as if it's not all over an object where it's shot. These are all their theories that they try to use. Oh, the GSR must have fallen off in the bag, the sealed bag, this bag that was sealed and protected from the elements, just like every other piece of evidence they use in prosecutions of other cases. Just throwing stuff out there. Just continuing to try to bang, 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 bang. Just make it fit. Make it look good. It's never going to fit because it's not the truth.
Banger.
They don't have an explanation of why that car did a U-turn. There's only one logical explanation. They don't have an explanation for that negative GSR test. They don't have an explanation of why their own witness, a doctor, the ME, said that upon that shot, bodily control would be lost. And we see the brake light go on and off 3 times after Shannon Stillwell's gone. They don't have explanations, but they just want to bang, bang, bang and try so hard to make it fit. If we follow the real evidence in this case, not what they're trying to sell you, you will come to the conclusion that the state has not proven count 1, conspiracy to violate the RICO Act beyond a reasonable doubt, and you will return the only just verdict in that case and find Mr. Stillwell not guilty. If we follow the evidence and not the narrative about count 2, Donovan Thomas, you will find that the testimony, the uncorroborated testimony of admitted liar Kenneth Copeland and admitted liar Quindarius Zachary is woefully insufficient, that there's reasonable doubt all over the place, and you will find Mr. Stillwell not guilty of count 2.
Admitted liar.
And if we follow the evidence, you will find that not only has the state not proven that that Shannon Stillwell shot Shmyel Drinks, not only have they not proven that beyond a reasonable doubt, but it's crystal clear that Mr. Stillwell did not commit that crime. And the only just verdict for counts 49 through 54 will be not guilty. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your time and attention.
All right. I think that's it for Shard. I think he did pretty good. I mean, he went through a lot of the shit that the state got wrong. He went after the credibility of witnesses, pointed out all the doubt and the murders. All right, Doug Weinstein up.
Thank you for your time over the last year. Thank you for your attention. It is sincerely appreciated. And I am going to do something that you have not seen much of. I am going to try to move at a brisk and deliberate pace and not take up any more of your time than I need to, because I think we have already taxed that enough at this point. I know that your time is valuable. I know you want to be able to spend the holidays with your family.
He's throwing shots. Let's go. He's already coming out swinging.
I would also like Mr. Kendrick to be able to spend the holidays with his family without the weight of this trial hanging over him. These attacks and use of his lyrics against him, the use of the lyrics against Jeffrey Williams, is frankly shameful. It's an attack on the First Amendment, and there's been so many rights, so many notions that I think we hold dear as a nation. The state is simply swept away. So why has the state taken a year of your life away from the work that you enjoy, the family that you love, your travel, your vacations, your children, grandchildren, parents? Why have they done that? What has been the point? The state told you in their opening that there was a point, and the point was that Jeffrey Williams was the head of a wolf pack. That is what they told you. But I don't think anyone sitting in here has seen that. You'll make that decision, not me. But I don't think anyone has seen that. What have they proven about Jeffrey Williams? They have proven that he was a man that through incredible hard work, dedication, and talent came up out of Cleveland Avenue. And instead of forgetting everyone back there, instead of leaving them behind, he tried to reach out to those people that were friends of his that he came up with and say, you don't have to live this life. You can come with me. Diamante Kendrick is one of Jeffrey Williams' best friends. And as I said, he's a casualty of law enforcement's war on Jeffrey Williams. Mr. Kendrick is charged with racketeering, murder, and several other charges, about 4, all relating to drugs and guns that were found at Jeffrey Williams' house when Mr. Kendrick was over there visiting. What evidence, what testimony, what witnesses, what physical evidence has the state shown you that Mr. Kendrick committed these crimes? I would say almost nothing that you've seen in this courtroom. Sure, they've played some videotapes, but what have you seen from this witness stand? Nothing. When this case began, we stood up here in opening and we told you the state would not be able to present evidence against Mr. Kendrick. We told you they're not going to be able to show you guns tied to him, that there would not be ballistics tied to Mr. Kendrick. There wouldn't be fingerprints tied to Mr. Kendrick. There would not be witnesses putting Mr. Kendrick at the scenes of these crimes. There wouldn't be any video of Mr. Kendrick involved in the tragic murder of Donovan Thomas. We told you that this case was a Krispy Kreme donut hole. I think the phrase I might prefer is a nothing burger. But that's what we told you. That's what we promised you. And that is a bold promise for a defense attorney to make. And it's one you'll rarely hear, but we made you that promise. And we also told you what would happen, that the state was going to parade hundreds of witnesses through here to throw everything they could against the wall to see what would stick. And frankly, I would submit that nothing has stuck, that we have kept our promises to you.
Sheesh.
They have to prove their state to you by guilt beyond a reasonable doubt for each of the charges, for each of the elements. It can't be down here as highly unlikely. It is a very high standard. Possibly guilty, probably guilty doesn't do it. It has to be guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.
Look at this graph. This is very good for a defense lawyer, especially in a case like this, to show the jury. So the only way they can say he's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, If they strongly believe, guilt likely, probable guilt, probably guilty, possibly guilty, suspected perhaps, all of these are not guilty.
I need to start by saying I have deep, deep sympathy for the Thomas family. I cannot imagine what it must be like to lose a loved one to gun violence or any type of violence like that. I myself have 5 children, and just the thought of losing a child tears me up. So I don't know what they must be going through. But I think the evidence that has been shown to you does not demonstrate in any way that Mr. Kendrick is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of the killing of Donovan Thomas. That Demikian Garlington told him all this stuff, that Kendrick was involved in killing Donovan Thomas. He didn't tell you anything about, at the McDonald's, he learned anything about the killing of Donovan Thomas that Diamante Kendrick was involved in. You didn't hear it at Sky House. You don't hear that from the stand from him. To the degree you heard any of that, it is in that June interrogation tape that was played to you. He was not under oath during that interrogation. And you heard the circumstances from Mr. SCHARDT, all the pressure that he was under. That was his 5th interrogation following the murder of Donovan Thomas, and the first time he comes up with this story clearly concocted by Demikian Garlington. How do you like the testimony of Demikian Garlington? Oh, you didn't hear any testimony from Demikian Garlington. Everything Garlington allegedly said, you heard through other people. And again, why did he lie to police? To use Mr. SCHARDT's phrase, because I always steal from the best. He didn't want to wear the blue jumpsuit. He didn't want to go to Rice Street. He didn't want to be in the Fulton County Jail. He didn't want to face years of prison. He finessed the police. He finessed the police. He is a master liar. He is an admitted master liar. And he has methodologies he uses to lie and try to make it convincing. And he explained all of that to you. Again, why doesn't he want to go to Rice Street? Well, he told you what jail was like. On my cross, he explained what jail was like. When he most recently spent time in jail, he had a broken toilet full of feces. There were flies everywhere. He had no food to eat. He had to put his shirt over his face to act as a mask, to try to keep the smell down. What rational person wouldn't do everything they can to avoid that? And of course, now's the next question. How do you know when to ever believe Kenneth Copeland? And I don't have a great answer for you on that. I can tell you what he said on the stand during my cross. He said, hand to God, I am telling the truth now. I have God in my heart. I have God in my head. Now, the state would have you believe about Mr. Copeland and Mr. Zachary, who I'll address next, that they got on the stand and they lied here. And they lied here, I'm sure they're going to say, because they're afraid of the defendants. And that is why they lie. But I'm going to argue to you that actually they got on the stand here and they told the truth. And they did it really almost in an act of bravery. Because when they get on the stand, the people they're afraid of is the state. They're afraid of the state. The state is the one that has the power to prosecute them. The state is the one that has the power to put them in prison.
The state's been putting this narrative that they're scared of the defendants and that's why they're lying on the stand. But these guys are up there fucking nervous as fuck about saying something wrong so they don't get sent back to jail. That's what it is.
That has the power to put Mr. Copeland in that jail cell with the non-working toilets and the feces and everything else that he is trying to avoid. But despite being afraid of the state, Mr. Copeland gets up here and tells you the truth. He lies to police. He lies to police repeatedly. And when I confronted him with those lies, why did you lie? He said, Yak never told me nothing. Yak never showed me nothing but love. Never showed me nothing but love. But he lied on him anyway. And why did he lie? Because Garlington came to him with a play. And what's the play? The play is to blame other people for the death of Donovan Thomas. Who did Mr. Zachary see in that infinity? He never saw nobody in that infinity but Woody, the Texaco. Oh my gosh, there's the smoking gun. There's the smoking gun that shows that my client murdered Donovan Thomas. He's on video at a Texaco station a block away before the murder. Heaven forbid. He pulls up in that Texaco in a Pontiac. He leaves the Pontiac to go into the Texaco, and he buys some junk food in the Texaco, goes back into the Pontiac. He sits in the Pontiac, he talks to another car that pulls up, he gets back in the Pontiac, and he leaves in the Pontiac. Go in the back. Watch the video 1,001st time. You're never going to see him get in an infinity. You're never going to see it. How does he get in the infinity? Was there a witness that got up here and put him in the infinity? No. Do they have video from the surrounding area that shows him transferring into the infinity? No. Presumably, he teleports into the infinity. I have no idea.
He teleports into the infinity.
They put on an infinity identification expert who has worked with, infinity for years. And he can tell in any kind of grainy video that car is an infinity. That's an amazing expert, but I'll take his testimony. That's fine. I think he's right. I think it's an infinity. And Mr. Kendrick is not in an infinity. And it's pretty hard to do a drive-by shooting if you are not in the car that did the drive-by.
Keeping it straightforward here. I like the style, bro.
There's no eyewitness testimony of Mr. Kendrick involved in the shooting. No weapons tying Mr. Kendrick to it. No ballistics. No fingerprints. No gunpowder residue. No DNA. Nothing. Nothing that you would expect to see. And the state put up a dollar bill with some puzzle pieces missing. So, well, you can kind of infer that that's a dollar bill. And that's true. But don't go try to spin that dollar bill anywhere. Because that dollar bill will not spend. And this evidence is not sufficient to convict beyond a reasonable doubt. Where's the cell phone data? Oh my gosh. You poor folks. You had to spend days listening to experts come in here and talk to you about cell phone location data. Where was Mr. Kendrick's cell phone location data putting him there? They didn't show you any.
They don't, dude, like they really don't have shit on Yak Gotti. Like there's no way there's a guilty verdict for Yak Gotti, for the murders especially.
Who killed Donovan Thomas? I don't know who killed Donovan Thomas, but I think Mr. SCHARDT's theory has some merit. It's a hybrid gang. Ooh, a hybrid gang. This is fascinating. Let's talk about hybrid gangs. What's a hybrid gang? Oh, a hybrid gang is whatever we say it is at any given point in time to fit our narrative. That's what a hybrid gang is. I use the term nose of wax. They can twist it any way they want to fit the group of people they want and say they're a hybrid gang. It's a catch-all. It's a catch-all used to throw all kinds of people together and say, well, you don't meet the definition of a gang, but because we are gang experts that train each other, we have decided you are a hybrid gang. Hybrid gang. So a hybrid gang apparently is one where, according to their experts, Bloods and Crips can live together in peace and harmony with each other to accomplish some type of goal. Does that make sense to anyone in here that has any basic understanding of the way that gangs work? You've had the state's own witnesses come here on the stand and talk about how ridiculous it is that you can say, that anyone can say, that YSL is a gang when you can have Bloods and Crips and Independents and all of these people be members of this alleged gang. As Mr. SCHARDT talked about, there's none of the traditional gang elements. There's no beating in. Anybody can call themselves a member of YSL. You guys are mostly in blue and black. You associate with each other here today. Are you guys a gang? The state is all in red today. Are they a gang because they're all dressed in red? Poor Miss Hingerty happened to come in red today. I guess she's a member of the gang as well. It is absurd. Lil Wayne has ESPN on his arm. ESPN. I guess Lil Wayne is surprised that he's a member of YSL too. My client's got ESPN on his body. No, that can't be because he was a football star and in his mind probably liked ESPN. It must be because he's a member of a gang called YSL.
Dude, I love Doug, man.
It's wonderful that the state's gang experts have such insights into the mental thinking of my client and Lil Wayne and everybody else. Now the state may say, well, they're not a gang, even though they all dress in red today, looking quite dapper. Because, well, they don't have some criminal objective. I don't know. Let's look at the way the state indicts people. The state's around Investigator Viverito. Investigator Viverito is the last person I can find anywhere on video or that you've seen on video holding that missing $500,000 watch. Did she steal the watch? Was that an overt act and can further into the conspiracy?
The watch. The watch gets brought up during closing. Love it.
Maybe I should go to a grand jury and try to indict this. It's the state gang or something ludicrous like that. Everything gang investigators see is viewed from the viewpoint of it must be a gang. Mr. Kendrick, look at the photo they showed you of Mr. Kendrick in the bandana shirt. Go back and look at it in color. The gang investigator says it's red. It is orange. Orange as the sun. You look at it, you decide, don't take my word for it, don't take their word for it, don't take the state's words for it. Use your own eyes. But when you're a gang investigator, everything has to fit the narrative. Did he get that snake because YSL is a gang? Or did he get that snake because it represents the tree of knowledge in the Adam and Eve story? I saw a mentalist Saturday night at a show, and this mentalist was amazing. This mentalist, you would think of something, and the mentalist would tell you, oh my gosh, you're thinking of a number between 1 and 50, it's 47. It's actually quite impressive. Apparently, Investigator Viverito and these other gang experts are mentalists. Maybe they will be at the next fundraiser I go to. I'd like to see some more of their tricks. There's photos of Mr. Kendrick wearing clothes that say SLAT outside of a recording studio. More gang activity. More people trying to pull themselves out, get into music, exercise their First Amendment rights. More gang activity. The state has not shown a conspiracy beyond a reasonable doubt. What is a conspiracy? It is an understanding to accomplish or pursue a common criminal objective. There's been no common criminal objective shown. What has been shown to you, and what was shown to you even earlier today? A series of independent, disparate acts over and over again. All kinds of different people committing criminal acts. I'm not going to argue to you that criminal acts were not committed, but they have not shown any relationship between these acts. They have not shown you anything that's shown it was done for a common criminal objective. That was not demonstrated. Again, as Mr. SCHARDT said, when Mr. Stevens was here, Tick, and Mr. Stevens was talking about selling pot, he did that for his own benefit. He's not paying up the ladder. And by the way, there is no ladder. Investigator Viverito told you because this is a hybrid gang, there's no structure to it. So I don't know how Mr. Mr. Stevens is supposed to spread the money around, but it doesn't matter. They're going to say there's a common criminal objective. Nothing has been shown. State says one of the objectives was money and power. Where's the money flowing? Where's the money? Where's the money coming in?
Zero evidence of any bank records. They didn't even get any bank records or anything.
Had the power of the courts, their subpoena power. They could have gotten Jeffrey Williams' banking and financial records. They could have subpoenaed his accountants. They could have gotten all of that to see the money flowing. Did they do it? No. Why didn't they do it? Well, I'm going to argue to you they didn't do it because there was nothing there. If they did it, it would undercut their case about seizing Mr. Williams' assets, about seizing $8 million worth of jewelry that he earned in the music business, about seizing all of those cars, about seizing the ring off of his finger and keeping it. We don't want to see those records because we don't want evidence that he earned all of this from his music and his hard work. No efforts of money and power as part of a conspiracy deriving from this gang. The judge is going to tell you in your instructions, mere association with an enterprise is insufficient by itself to establish a conspiracy to violate the RICO Act. Mere association. And that's what you have here. Mere association. A bunch of guys that grew up together, were around each other, and that some of whom were trying to make it out, and some of whom were trying to help others make it out. The state hasn't shown that Diamante Kendrick knowingly and willingly joined this conspiracy, and they must show that. Well, first of all, I understand their difficulty. I understand their problem. How do you show that you knowingly and willingly joined a conspiracy with a criminal purpose when one doesn't exist? So that's their first challenge.
When one doesn't exist.
That's their first challenge. What did they do to try to show knowing and willing join? Well, he hung out with some guys that did some bad things. He allegedly is part of this YSL gang that's not a gang. And by the way, you heard testimony, Mr. Kendrick was signed to the YSL record label. So I guess he knowingly and willingly signed to the YSL record label. But that is not the same as knowingly and willingly joining a conspiracy. These acts have to be interrelated. And instead, what you've seen for a year of your time is isolated incident after isolated incident. We're going to throw everything against the wall and hope something sticks. But even if a few things stick, if they're not interrelated, it is not a pattern. You're going to find that Mr. Kendrick is not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of conspiracy to violate RICO. The last charges are easier to discuss, and we'll go faster. Counts 57, 58, 61, and 63. These are the last 4 counts against Mr. Kendrick. All of those relate or based upon drugs and guns found at Jeffrey Williams' house. Not a single witness, photograph, fingerprint, lab test, DNA, everything you can imagine. Nothing shows that Mr. Kendrick possessed any of those guns and drugs. When they arrested Mr. Kendrick that day, did they test his clothing for any type of samples that there might be drugs or? No, nothing. You didn't see any of that.
I don't know why they charged him with those guns and drugs. It's very bizarre.
Why is he arrested for drugs and guns? It's merely his presence at Jeffrey Williams' house that day. But when someone invites me over to their home, I do not ask before I go there, do you have drugs stashed away throughout your house? I do not ask before I go there, have you got a machine gun hidden under the couch in the basement? Have you got guns stashed in your cabinets?
That's a great point.
Participation in criminal street gang activity. That is purely based on his alleged possession of marijuana and a firearm. But again, no one got up here and said Mr. Kendrick possessed any of the firearms or any of the drugs at the house. Now, constructive possession requires the state to show that Mr. Kendrick intended to possess those weapons, intended to possess those drugs. So when the state tells you that, I want you to please remember what I've just told you and think, what witnesses have you seen? What evidence has been presented that Mr. Kendrick intended to possess those weapons or those drugs or that marijuana?
Literally zero evidence. So that's a great question right there to ask the jury.
Nothing. Zero. Donut hole, nothing burger. The state has an army of prosecutors, investigators, law enforcement to assist them. I mean, Diamante only has David. And I just pray that I've done my best to slay this giant Goliath that is pursuing him. The state has not met their high burden of showing guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. I would even argue the state hasn't met these lower standards either. It's just not been done. I believe that you can go back and send the message that targeting people, fixating on individuals who have managed to climb out of their circumstance, attacking people for their music and their lyrics and their art is wrong. Targeting only people of color for their music and lyrics is wrong. Winnie Lee, when he was on the stand, told you, he told all of us, even though I'm a black man, not everything I write about is true or autobiographical. He has an imagination. Mr. Kendrick has an imagination. He has things to say about what he sees in the world around him, as does Winnie Lee, as does Jeffrey Williams. And the use of lyrics and artistic expression against individuals is wrong, it's un-American, and it shows the desperation of the state that they have to reach to that level in order to try to make a case against Mr. Kendrick. You can show that maybe, just maybe, we really do believe it when we tell people that through hard work, you can pull yourself up from wherever you came from. And that we, as Americans, as people, we believe in redemption. So I ask you to please remember that during and after the state's closing, to remember that when you're deliberating, to remember that each of you individually gets to make that decision of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'm going to ask you to go back there, deliberate, and come back with not guilty verdicts for Mr. Kendrick on all the charges against him. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for the last year of your life that you sacrificed to be here and fulfill your roles as citizens. I really appreciate it.
Doug went in there doing Doug shit, baby. Oh, dear God. Here we go, Miss Hilton.
Mr. Weinstein said something very interesting as he closed. He said something to the effect of, the state should be ashamed of themselves for targeting people of color.
That's not what he said. He said people of color about music, though. It was specifically about rap music. She's misrepresenting what he said. Off rip.
The majority of this prosecution team are people of color. And we are not targeting people of color. We are targeting gang members who decided to wreak havoc on communities in Fulton County.
Oh, here we go with this attitude. Targeting only people of color for their music and lyrics is wrong. I did not say the state is targeting black folks. I said they're only targeting them for their music. She's tripping.
And what we're going to ask of you today is hold both of these offenders accountable for their actions, because they are guilty of every single crime for which they are charged.
I can already tell this is going to be a rough hour or two here with her. Holy shit.
And see, in this case for them, it's convenient to blame Kenneth Copeland for the murder of Donovan Thomas. For them, it is convenient to tell you that we have not met the elements of RICO because they're just not a gang. They just get YSL tatted on them. They just get snakes tatted on them just for the fun of it. That's convenient for them. APD, somebody stole this watch. No one stole the watch. The watch was left back in the house. But they want you to focus on this watch because if you focus on the watch, you won't miss the evidence in front of you. Talked about no reports. You know, Viverito, she didn't write any reports. But what she told you is she wrote her information in the affidavits. Affidavits that get sworn before a judge. Probably better than reports because a judge has to actually read that information. But if you focus on the fact that Viverito didn't write any reports, you're going to miss it right in front of you. Mr. Weinstein talked about length of time. We talked about that. Knowledge of co-conspirators. I think at one point in time, Mr. SCHARDT said, Mr. Myrick, who stabbed Lucci, he doesn't know Mr. Kendrick or Mr. Stillwell? Maybe not. But he knows Khalif Adams, who's the one who helped set up stabbing Lucci. Khalif Adams knows those two, well, knows Mr. Stillwell. Khalif Adams knows Garlington. And so some way, somehow, though, Mr. Stillwell knew on February 9th that Lucci got stabbed. Well, how does he know that? How's that in a text message? That wasn't broadcast to the world. So this idea that just because Mr. Myrick doesn't know him specifically does not mean that they're not guilty of the crime for which they committed. They talk about witness credibility, specifically about experts, and what our experts said. What is the truth about that? And is there evidence towards the truth? That is what you're here for. Seek the truth, you follow the law, and you deliver it.
Hold on. The truth. They're not here for the truth. They are here to consider the evidence that was presented to them. That's all. I fucking hate that argument. It is not the juror's job to seek the truth about what happened. It's to seek the truth about whether the state proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt.
He did not have direct physical control over the marijuana or firearm, but did knowingly have both the ability and the intention to exercise control over the marijuana. We know he doesn't have sole possession or focus on joint possession. Defendant shared possession of marijuana or firearms with at least one other person. SWAT, when they came, did not immediately make entry into the house. It was like announced, it was loud. So I submit to you that they had the opportunity to put stuff away, to hide stuff, because they didn't just come in immediately, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen. So you can take that into consideration as you deliberate. Possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony.
Hello? Yeah. I don't know. Trying to call, like, really play on hockey tape to the Baba house. Yeah. Why can't he hockey tape if he's a rental legit? Yeah. He got my legit gun.
So the fact that she says he got my legit gun, which is that gun right here, he should never have ever even been in possession of it.
If Shannon's found guilty for the gun shit, that's why right there.
When Shannon and Garlington are sitting in the car and they're back there and they see Mr. Drinks pull in and they realize, oh snap, that's the dude from the Shell Cal post. And they see him walking up and they decide at that moment they're going to get him because they're going to get revenge, they're going to get back. That's enough, right?
Oh snap, that's the dude from the Shell Cal post. She just put words in the mouth of defendant sitting in that courtroom. That's crazy.
No specific length of time is required for malice to arise in the defendant's mind. It may be formed in a moment, and instantly a fatal wound may be inflicted. If malice was in the defendant's mind at the time of the act of the killing and moves the defendant to do it, that is enough for the killing to be murder. He's the one who got out of the Bonneville and went to the Infinity. He's just as guilty as the ones who pulled the trigger. Nard and Mr. Jackson. He's just as responsible. And that's what party to a crime says. Every person involved in the murder is just as responsible as the person who pulls the trigger, because you're all acting together.
What evidence do you have that he got in the Infinity?
You heard from his mother, you heard from his father. He's from Atlanta, he had kids, he was in the game, but he had started to kind of try to get into the music business. And he had started doing that by one, he had a relationship with Rich Homie Quan, two, he had just put Lucci on, YSL Lucci. So he was trying to kind of turn that mark and do something different.
Isn't that ironic? I mean, I know, rest in peace to Donovan Thomas. The way she's talking about him when Thug did the same exact shit, Thug in a gang and transitioned to a better life. She would never speak about Thug like that.
That he was at the barbershop. getting his haircut. His brother was there. And what were they getting ready to do? Meet with their dad to go watch the football game. I think it was the Ravens and the Patriots. Don't quote me if I'm wrong, but I think it was the Ravens and the Patriots. And that's what he was getting ready to do. Spend time with his father. So when you do your gang murder and you brag to your gang member friends that you murdered someone, then the person I have to bring in here to tell you what happened is the gang member friend. And the gang member friend.
All right, calm down, bro.
You in front of them what they told the police. So that's why I had to fight. Ms. Love got to fight. We got to argue with them back and forth because now they have to come in here and confront the people that they snitched on in front of them. So, and they know this. They know that none of these witnesses want to come in here and say what they told police. And if they know you say, well, I don't know, I mean, he did swore an oath in court and said that he told the guy the truth. Let's go and tell the guy the truth in this courtroom. Maybe some of the stuff he told was truthful. Here again, like he said, he's doing a little bit of truth sometimes. That's what he said, right? But he did that a little bit, and we'll talk about that. I need D to come in so they can believe, so they can know what I told them is true. They had to verify what I said. So when he came in and said, I would finesse the police, I would lie to them. No, because you wanted them to verify what you told them. And we're going to talk about how the police and Mike Sprinkle was able to verify what he told them.
Why are they playing Woody phone calls right now, bro? Like anything, we can't trust anything Woody said. What are they doing? What is Miss Hilton doing?
And I'm telling you what Copeland and Zachary did while they testified here, was they put on for YSL. They came in here acting all types of foolishness. And that's because they wanted to show their gang member friends, look, I'm still part of the conspiracy. I know I snitched on y'all back in 2015, but I'm going to try to help y'all out as best as I can. And that's what they did.
Look at Miss Love shaking her head. Bro, Miss Love looks like she wants to kill herself. Someone clearly higher up was like, Miss Love, you can't do any more talking. Everyone hates you. She wants to talk so bad. Miss Love was like the leader of all this shit at first. Now she's like nothing the past like month or two.
And why would they lie on their friends? If they knew to make up stuff and make up lies, why would you lie and say your friends committed a murder? That doesn't make sense. Why lie? You could just say anybody committed the murder. If you just lying, you don't want anybody to verify what you were saying, you could have said anybody committed the murder. But that's not what they did. Coleman's phone was in the area of his girlfriend's house.
They're taking everything he says in this interview as fact because he actually woke up at his girlfriend's house on phone records. That's not enough to convict someone for murder. I'm sorry. Corroboration. Like what?
At 7:26, he is still at his girlfriend's house after the murder. So this notion, when they say, well, Kenneth Copeland did it, I know somebody who could have done it, well, it wasn't Kenneth Copeland. The person who did it is Stillwell, Gat, Nard, and Tupac. What did the phone record tell you? He went to Green School. He's at the Green School at 7:28. Between 7:28.
This isn't enough.
And how was that corroborated? Mr. Sprinkle found a Hertz rental car record in order to corroborate. Is what Mr. Copeland said accurate? Was there a vintage gray vehicle? Almost a year later, he finds the rental car. That is corroboration of what Kenneth Copeland said. He literally took everything that Kenneth Copeland says and said, can I corroborate this? And that's what he did. He said it was Yak, Nard, and Duwop. This is two different interviews. Copeland is telling them what the Meek told him, and Zachary's telling the police what Stillwell and Yak told him. But how are we have the same people? Yak.
This person's telling that person, that. Where's the hard evidence? Where's the DNA, the ballistics, the phone tracking? Keep it simple.
Nard, Duwop, Stillwell. That does not change. That's corroboration of each other. Two different interviews. Two different times. Saying the same people? Ladies and gentlemen, that's evidence. That ain't a coincidence. And remember what Copeland said, which I found interesting. When they asked, do you remember what gas station? He's like, I don't know what gas station. How would he know that Yak was at the gas station and that they circled the block and pulled up and saw Donovan outside? If they didn't tell him that. He didn't even know what gas station they were at. But what did Mike Sprinkle do? He said, well, let me go pull the gas station footage and see if I can corroborate what he's seen. And that's exactly what he did. He pulled up the January 10th Texaco gas station and see when the car pulls into the gas station. The Bonneville. And in that same interview, they asked him, well, what kind of car was Yak in initially? He tells them it was a Bonneville. How would he know? He doesn't know that we're going to find a surveillance video. But they want you to believe Kenneth is lying? For what? You have Yak going inside the gas station. That's him in the gas station. They sit at Texaco from 6:44 to 7:15. They wait for the girlfriend to come. And when the girlfriend comes, that's about the same time that the Infiniti pulls up. What you waiting for 30 minutes at the gas station for? Who waits at the gas station that long?
What you waiting for 30 minutes at the gas station? These motherfuckers are unemployed, bro. They're sitting there smoking.
And on the video, Yak walks over to the car. Now, I know Mr. SCHARDT said, well, my client ain't on the video. Well, we just can't see him on the video. I submit he in the car. Then they both leave at the same time, and they both turn right on North Side Drive. Well, what's right above here? It's a barbershop. I know Mr. YSL said it's a block away. It ain't a block away. Literally, when you go out here, you look up the street, you see the barbershop. It's not a block away. It's yards away. So they had a vantage point to see them when he's driving down McDaniel Street. If Kendrick didn't tell them that he saw Donovan, maybe we wouldn't be here today on a murder charge.
Wait, she's saying Kendrick's the one that alerts them of Donovan's location out front of the barbershop?
He's the one who alerted them.
Why is she yelling? What's going on? I feel like this is not a good thing to do to a jury.
That's why he's just as guilty as the ones who shot. This is them when we sped through the video. So now it's about 9:05. That's Doo-Wop getting out. I submit to you, that's Doo-Wop getting out the car, smoking a cigarette. I submit probably trying to look see if Donovan's still outside. So you can see how much time they had before Donovan go inside and go get his haircut. That's when Willie Bushi pulls up in that car. And that's Kendrick. Initially, he was in the passenger side. And then that's the driver. That's I submit to you all. That's Bradford. He gets out the car. Then you see Mr. Kendrick kind of waves to the Infinity. Then he walks over to the Infinity. I submit that's when they're going to talk about what they're going to do, how they about to kill Donovan, what they're going to roll around, do what car, what guns in the car, how they going to do it, who going to do what. He now gets back in the driver's seat. And we talk about where did they switch cars. I submit to you behind the gas station. They both made it right in a moment. I'm going to show you what's right behind the gas station where they could have easily switched cars.
But it's not on camera, so you have no evidence of it.
And remember, we talked about the time, so it's not 8:08. Remember, this time is off a few moments. And that's them coming down the street in the Infinity, shooting. Of course, you're going to see, I'm going to play this all this, the reaction, what happens in the store. You got babies running. Bullets have no names. And they have the audacity to tell you that we're sitting here trying to charge people of color? No. You should not have to be sitting here on a Saturday trying to get your hair cut and have bullets come inside of a barbershop. Bullets have no names. And there was babies in the front. But you just spraying down the street for what? For your status in YSL? So you can show Mr. Williams that you big and bad? That's what this is about. And that's Donovan's brother. Outside. I submit he saw what happened, but you know what? He ain't going to tell us. He ain't going to talk to the police. That's what the gang culture is. It takes no time to drive up the wrong way street, drive back down, and come back down into this shit. That's where they switch the cars at.
But do you have evidence of that, or are you just inferring?
At 7:42, which is one of the calls that's right here, Yak ain't with him. You want to know why? Because Yak with the other 3 murderers. That's where Yak at. What evidence do we have? No, we don't have DNA. You want to know why? They got rid of the car. No, we don't have DNA. You want to know why? Because they got rid of the guns. All we have is what they told their co-conspirators.
So there's doubt, is what you're saying. Appreciate you for acknowledging that. Thank you, Miss Hilton.
I have to bring to you what I have are the phone records, what I have are the surveillance videos to corroborate what the co-conspirators said. Because I don't have those things. I wish I had them, but they got rid of it. That's Yak the night of. What'd he say? Maniac's back. That's what he said, right? Y'all know me and my Santana voice. You right. The maniac's back. He just drove the car that took somebody's life. That's just to show you, that's Javor's Bradford in that Pontiac. That's on that surveillance video. He said, nah, I don't think Doo-Wop had a gun. I don't think so, but I definitely know Yak was driving, because if we gonna lie, say Yak had a gun too. What are the shell casings? How he know it was a 7.62? That's what Donovan was killed with. Those are the bullets that came out of Mr. Thomas. The shell casings that was found, there was multiple types of shell casings, 45, 9s, and 7.62s. How they know that? This is called corroboration. This is called verification. They don't know they don't know what bullet was pulled out of Donovan Thomas's body at the autopsy. They don't know what shell casings the police picked up off the ground. But ironically, they know, it's not ironic. They know the type of gun that they use. You think that that's ironic that both Copeland and Zachary talk about the guns going? Oh, and the phone records corroborate that all the phones was at Bentley House right after the murder? All of those things are corroboration.
The stream gave up on Miss Hilton because she was yapping for so long. Is she retrying the case right now or doing closing arguments? I can't tell.
Fuck D. Fuck them niggas, bruh. All that fake friend shit. Fuck nigga. He know what's going on. Pussy ass nigga. That's what he said. Fuck niggas are rats. He ain't say he lied on me. He said he a rat. I just went to court and they let everything out. That fuck nigga a rat. Him, Woody, and the other little D. Bitch, you in love with a rat hoe. That's anger. Why? Because you just heard that your friends, because you didn't really know it was them, but they said witness 1 and witness 2, you were able to infer that your friends told the police about what you did the night of Donovan Thomas's murder. These are his words. He didn't say, yo, them dudes, I went to my prelim and they lied on me. He didn't say, oh man, I don't know where they got this information from. He said they a rat. Because what do rats do? They tell. And he was angry that his boys would tell what he did. From 2019 to 22, there was no indictment, nothing happening in the case. So in 2019, which is 4 years after the murder, he knows that Sledge has been dismissed, Copeland has been dismissed, and Garlington has been dismissed. His case is the only one that ain't been dismissed. In 4 years, you haven't heard about an indictment. You think you beat a murder rap. This isn't, oh, he was on this and that. He thought he beat a murder rap because you're not indicted until almost 7 years later. Me and my slimes above the law, I know it's mumbling, but he says we don't work in court at all. And I wipe your nose, send your family's face, and just smile it off. Some of these things he repeats in multiple songs.
Seems like a stretch, dude. Like connecting these lyrics to the murder. It's a big stretch.
Because they don't think they're going to get held accountable for the murder. So they start saying stuff in their songs like, I just beat a homicide. Ha, 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 walk it off. I just left that boy on the curb. Well, where was Donovan Thomas found, y'all? On the curb. I'm a big lizard, big slime, big shots, riding down your block, hanging out the top. Oh, shoot. Didn't Reginald Hendricks say that somebody was shooting out of the top of the infinity? See, now you start bragging on it because you think you beat it. So now you, like our experts told you, they start bragging about it. What we call it dry snitching. You telling on yourself because you don't think that the police are going to find your phone. That's why you threw it. But luckily for Viverito, she listened to some jail calls and found that phone because you didn't think we were going to find it. This is called confession. This ain't rap. This is a confession. I don't give a fuck about a red light. I'm on go. I'm on green. I see an eye. I'm taking him down. Walk him down from a mile. The last homicide, I smiled. How many times you gonna keep talking about the fact that you killed this man and you bragging about it?
She loud as hell.
Let that bitch rain out the top of the drop. Here we go again. Lizard walk your block. Let that glizzy rock. Oh, glizzy ain't got a Glock. Dang, one Shmyel killed with Glock. One there Glock on that table. Well, what investigator Viverito said it looked like a Glock. And I found it interesting because we're gonna get the Shmyel soon. We about to get the Shmyel. 100 rounds in a Tahoe? Everyone knew that Donovan drove a Tahoe. And how ironic is it that he got rounds of bullets in his Tahoe when he says we know how to kill the biggest kitten of all kitties? What he got crawling up on him? A snake. They signed. That is a subliminal message to everyone else. Yeah, we did that. He already told you himself, you ought to get killed from me and YSL if you snitch. See, that video is not just, a nice artistic video. That has symbolism in it. Young man probably started associating with people from YFN, but on the day that he was about to get killed, he's about to go back to his girlfriend's house and go eat some spaghetti. You see him go inside the gas station, he's not worried about a thing. He doesn't know that seconds later he's gonna lose his life. This is motive. Again, that's that same video with Quindarius, y'all. Christian McMillan's been around since 2009. This is Mr. Williams' long friend, old friend, good friend. And he gets murdered by YSL Associates. Oh, you got to pay for that. Here we have just different pictures of them, both Mr. Ford and Mr. McMillan, all with other YSL Associates. You'll have these in evidence, ladies and gentlemen. That's unfortunately the car that they were driving in when they were tragically gunned down on March 11th. It's tragic. These posts were despicable. That post crossing out that young girl's daddy and saying that, despicable. But that's the type of stuff that gangs do, right? To keep nudging each other. Well, that would make you mad. You see how heartbroken YSL was for the death of Mr. McMillan and Mr. Ford. They were devastated. These are all different YSL members posting them because they were devastated. Let's go rent this car. Now, you know, this notion that they rented the car because Taisha got into the gunfight. Well, she got into the gunfight on March 9th. So she got into the gunfight on March 9th. Why y'all just rent the car on March 9th? They rent the car on March 14th because the ops don't know what kind of car you in. So you can disguise yourself in this Audi because they don't know you in it. So they're not suspecting you. That's not the car that they're used to. So when you go op hunt, you got to switch the car out because they're not expecting to find you in the car. What do we know about Shell Kell and Demikian Grant's social media? What does investigator Viverito tell you? That because she was following both pages, she could see who followed who, and Demikian followed Kelvin Wise. So what post do we see? This post was posted, I believe, on March 13th. And there's a picture of Mr. Drinks, Jasper Walters, and Kelvin Wise. They had the best vantage point to see when Mr. Drinks came in, when he walked into the store, when he walked back out the store, and when he pulled off. Now Shmyel's finally got into the car. FaceTime real quick. You know what happens on FaceTime. You've heard testimony about what happens on FaceTime. What happens on FaceTime is that is when criminal of the gas station. Mr. Drinks pulls out. That is when op vehicle number 1 pulls out, op hunting car. And then that's when the second car immediately pulls out. They sat there, y'all. We were quiet for at least 2 minutes here when they did nothing. And they want to tell you that some other car killed him? That's them driving by the liquor store. They laid in wait until Mr. Drinks pulled out. You have to look at all the evidence together, not just the FedEx video, but we're going to talk about that FedEx video. This is them pulling up to the light. You see there's somebody walking on the street, walking this way towards the gas station. Here go the 3 cars pulling up at the light. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't see it here, but we know that there's a red light. Shannon and Nichols are stopped at the red light. They stop. Drinks is in the left turn lane. Shannon is right next to him, and Quarmave is right next to Shannon. Y'all now see the traffic going in the opposite direction that they are in. Then you see Nichols pull up. I'm just going to submit that this car stops here. This car, I think, saw what happened. Because he stops a little behind it, like, whoa. You had the person walking down the street. Mr. SCHARDT, and we're going to talk about this car in a moment. Mr. SCHARDT talked about what the medical examiner said. What she said was there will be no conscious movement. She didn't say anything about unconscious movement. Because that is what you see with the brake lights, y'all. No, he could not consciously say, let me go. But the unconscious movement, because he doesn't shot in his head, is what is happening.
Why is she yelling, bro? If there's any jurors that are over it already, this isn't gonna help.
Y'all gotta think about this, because this is what they didn't want to show you. Shannon went from 18 miles per hour to 90 miles per hour. See, Mr. SCHARDT didn't want to talk to you about that. He wouldn't tell you about a car that turned around because he heard the gunshot. But the man or woman walking down the street didn't hear the gunshot. That person walking, just chilling. You think if the people in the car heard the gunshot and turned around, don't you think that the person walking down the street would be like, hold up, let me back up? It's a gunshot down there. Could it be that maybe the car that turned around saw the liquor store and said, shoot, I'm gonna give me a drink, it's Saturday? Could it be they left something at the gas station? He wants you to believe the only reason why they turned around is they heard gunshots. That doesn't make sense when someone is walking down the street. Shannon's car is directly next to Mr. Drink's car. And that's gonna be important when I show you these crime scene photos. This other car that he wants to talk about, that he's like, oh, this is the one who killed, this is the person who shot. Oh, and we couldn't get LPR. What? Where was I gonna get LPR from? You can't see no license plate. I don't know what type of car it is. That car is never directly next to Mr. Drink's. It is always behind. I submit they saw what happened. Because if you see the crime scene photos will show you that the bullet went through the door where Mr. Stillwell's car was. And we'll talk about the gunshot residue. What makes sense? There's no muzzle flash anywhere on the video. So that's just nonsense. You don't see no muzzle flash. Mr. Drink's dead though. So we know a gun was fired. Let's take his theory. You don't see the muzzle flash when the other car pulls up, do you? You don't. That theory makes no sense. You have to take all the evidence. Not just FedEx, but everything that occurred. Like I told you, he went from literally, y'all, 18 miles all the way to 90. This is the intersection. This is 1 minute later. What you fleeing for 90 miles per hour if you ain't killed nobody? You was just chilling. And then you go to the studio and do what you do. You brag. Because remember, they all went to the studio. And what'd he say? Pop my shit. I really got options. Poor little ops. Look how they just drop it. Poor little ops. Look how they just drop it. Those are his words. After he just executed a man at a light. He goes to the studio to go rap about it. This is why they think they above the law. And he is telling Poker, we need to get this hotel room. We need to get out of Dodge. We need to lay low. He tells her, don't tell anyone any information. Why you gotta do all that if you ain't killed nobody? Because of what happened on the 9th? Well, why was it so urgent on the 15th? Not when she had to shoot the people on the 9th. You gotta ask yourself the question. This became real important the day after he killed Shmyel. This didn't become important after she done almost got robbed. They want to say, well, that's because his grandmama told him and his girlfriend told him. Well, they told him on March 14th about the shooting. He not Googling on March 14th. He Googling on the 17th. Oh, what happened? Viverito. Remember what they said in jail calls? Shit, Miss V know everything. So that's why they start Googling. Well, what Miss V know? What they got? This is the same way he started Googling on the 12th, on the 12th Atlanta shooting. What them folks got about that shooting over at 12th Atlanta? You know Steven did that. What they know?
I've been sitting here for 5 hours watching.
They're both Shmyel and Donovan are affiliated, associated with YFN. But they want you to believe this is just two totally unrelated cases. Oh, and Shannon is supposed to be the shooter in both of them. The one who's always on go. He says it himself, but Quindarius said it too. The one who wants to do the murder because he wants status in the game. But they want to tell you, don't believe any evidence that the state brought. Don't believe any of it. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you not to do that. You know, Mr. Drinks, young man may try to find his way, maybe getting caught up in the wrong crowd. But on that day, he should have been able to go to his girlfriend's house. He should have been able to maybe decide that these aren't the friends he want to be with. This ain't music. This is not a song right here, y'all. This is real life. Real dead bodies. Real dead people. Real shootings. This ain't no song over a beat. And they know when they brought him to it, with his flag tattoo, his emergent tattoo, what they were doing. They are guilty of every single count that they are both charged with. Mr. Atkins told you what this was about. Destruction of people. Destruction of the community that they live in. Deception. They want to deceive you by telling you that these people in here are just lying just to lie. They're trying to deceive you to tell you that this is all about rap music, rap business. It is not. This is about death. How many dead bodies at the hands of YSL? How many people shot at the hands of YSL? They are a gang. By every definition of the word. And you want to talk about we are here just trying to get people of color? No, I'm trying to get gang members to stop committing violent acts in this community, in Fulton County, where each of their victims are people of color. The people that they destroyed, the people that they hurt, the people that they tarnished. Young boys. Rodelius Ryan could have had a promise in life. But what is it? He out here murdering folks at the hands of YSL. Christian Eppinger at the hands of YSL. Go catch you a body. That's how you become slime. That's what he says in his song. Go catch you a body. I'll show you how to be slime. And that's what these little boys are doing. Catching a body to be slime. But they want to tell you that we got a vendetta on people of color? It's ridiculous. It's absurd. These two defendants, Mr. Kendrick and Mr. Stillwell, are guilty. They are guilty of murder. They are guilty of gang acts. They're guilty of conspiracy to violate RICO. And I ask of you, look at the evidence. Look at the law. I know it took some time. I know you probably want to go home and get your turkey. I know I get it. But I am asking you all to go back there, finish this marathon, finish this race, hold them accountable for their actions. When you apply the law with the facts and the evidence, there's only one just conclusion. That these defendants are guilty. Ladies and gentlemen, evil prevails when good men and women do nothing. I'm asking you to do something. I'm asking you to hold them accountable. I'm asking you to return a verdict of guilty. Thank you.
Miss Hilton had some good moments there when she was calm and not trying to say shit. I still think it's going to end up with a hung jury. Honestly, that was my prediction earlier, and that's my prediction now. Hit subscribe, don't change membership. Love you guys. Peace out.